the quiet stillness of a distant past, long before the world grew loud with engines and electric light, there was a slower rhythm to life. The air felt softer then, carrying the scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and early morning dew. Days began not with alarms, but with the gentle stirring of nature itself. Far across rolling hills and open fields, where mist rested low over the grass like a thin blanket, a stone castle stood in silence. Its tall walls, weathered by time, held within them the quiet routines of many lives. Among those lives was a knight. He did not wake suddenly. There was no rush. His sleep ended slowly, as pale light from the rising sun slipped through the narrow window of his chamber. The room was simple. Thick stone walls held the coolness of the night. A wooden bed, layered with rough blankets, stood against one side. Nearby, a small table held a clay cup, a piece of bread left from the night before, and a candle burned low, nearly finished. Outside, the world was beginning to stir. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster called out, its voice clear and steady. Birds followed, soft at first, then slowly filling the air with quiet song. The knight opened his eyes, not with urgency, but with calm awareness. Morning had come again, just as it always did. He lay still for a moment, listening. There was comfort in these small sounds, the wind brushing lightly against the stone, the faint movement of people in the lower halls, footsteps distant and unhurried, a door opening somewhere far below, life moving gently forward. At last he rose. The floor beneath his feet was cold. Stone always held the night's chill, even in warmer seasons. He dressed simply at first, pulling on a linen shirt that felt soft from many washings. Over it, he added a thicker tunic to keep away the morning cold. His armor was not yet needed. Armor was heavy, and time with it was chosen carefully. For now, there were quieter duties to begin the day. He moved to the window. From here, he could see the land stretching far beyond the castle walls. Fields lay covered in a thin veil of mist. A narrow path curved through them, worn by years of travel. In the distance, a small village rested quietly, its rooftops just visible through the haze. Smoke rose gently from a few chimneys. Someone had woken earlier. Someone had already begun their work. The knight watched for a while. There was no need to hurry. Morning was a time for stillness, a time to gather thoughts before the day unfolded. The world in these early moments felt calm and balanced. Nothing demanded too much. Nothing rushed him forward. Eventually, he turned away. The castle itself was beginning to wake. As he stepped into the corridor, the air felt cooler, carrying faint echoes of movement. Servants were already at work, their steps soft and practiced. A young boy passed quietly, carrying a bucket of water, his eyes lowered in respect. The knight nodded gently as they crossed paths. There was an understanding in these small gestures. No words were needed. He made his way down a narrow staircase, the stone worn smooth in the center from many years of use. His hand brushed lightly against the wall as he descended, feeling the texture of the stone, solid, steady, unchanging. Below, the great hall waited. It was still dim, lit only by the early light entering through high windows. Long wooden tables stretched across the room, empty for now. At the far end, a large hearth held the remains of last night's fire. A faint warmth still lingered, though the flames had long since faded. A servant moved quietly near the hearth, adding fresh wood. Soon, the fire would return. The knight took a seat along one of the benches. His movements were slow, unhurried. This was not a time for conversation or noise. It was a time for quiet beginnings. Breakfast was simple. A piece of coarse bread, perhaps a small portion of cheese.
sometimes porridge, warm and plain, a cup of watered ale or milk, nothing rich, nothing heavy, just enough to prepare the body for the tasks ahead. He ate slowly. Each bite was steady, without distraction. Around him, others began to enter the hall, a few men-at-arms, a steward, more servants. Their voices remained low, almost blending into the background. No one disturbed the calm. After the meal, the knight stepped outside into the castle yard. The air was fresh, carrying a coolness that lingered from the night. The mist was beginning to lift now, revealing more of the land beyond. The sky, pale and open, held the soft colors of early morning. Here, the day would begin in earnest. Training was part of his life, not in a harsh or hurried way, but as a steady practice. Skills were not built in a single day. They were shaped slowly, over years, through repetition and patience. In one corner of the yard, wooden dummies stood in quiet rows, their surfaces marked by many strikes. Nearby, a rack of practice weapons rested neatly, wooden swords, blunted spears, shields worn from use. The knight approached them. He selected a wooden sword first. Its weight felt familiar in his hand, balanced, reliable. He stepped into the open space, his boots pressing softly against the packed earth. There was no audience, only the quiet rhythm of movement. He began slowly, a simple strike, then another, each motion controlled, deliberate. The sound of wood meeting wood echoed softly as he practiced against the dummy. Not loud, not sharp, just steady. Breath moved with motion. Inhale, exhale. Again. Time passed gently. The sun rose higher, warming the stone walls and the ground beneath his feet. Shadows shifted slowly across the yard. Other knights and trainees joined, each focused on their own practice. There was no need for competition. Each man followed his own pace, his own routine. The world remained calm. Sometimes a trainer would pass by, offering a quiet word or a small correction, a shift of the wrist, a change in stance. Nothing dramatic, just small adjustments, guiding the body toward better balance. The knight listened, he adjusted, he continued. This was how days were shaped, not by sudden change, but by steady repetition. After some time, the sword was set aside. Next came the shield, then movement drills, steps forward, steps back, turning, pausing, breathing. Everything flowed. Even the sounds around him blended into a gentle rhythm. The soft thud of footsteps, the quiet scrape of wood, the distant call of birds overhead. There was no rush to finish. The morning stretched on, calm and patient. And as the sun climbed slowly into the sky, the knight continued his practice, moving through each motion with quiet focus. His day unfolding, one simple moment at a time.
The morning continued to unfold without urgency. The rhythm of training softened as the sun rose higher, its warmth settling gently across the stone walls and the open yard. The air, once cool and touched by mist, now felt a little warmer, a little lighter. The quiet sounds of practice began to fade, one by one, as each man reached a natural stopping point. The knight lowered his wooden sword. There was no signal to end, no loud command, only a shared understanding that the morning's work had been done, at least for now. He stood still for a moment, letting his breath return to its resting pace. His hands, slightly warm from effort, relaxed at his sides. Around him, others did the same. A few men spoke in low voices. Some stretched their arms and shoulders. Others simply walked away, already thinking of the next quiet task waiting for them. Nothing felt hurried. The day moved forward gently, like a slow stream finding its path. The knight crossed the yard at an easy pace.
His steps carried him toward the stables, a place that held a different kind of calm. As he approached, the scent of hay and earth grew stronger. It was a familiar smell, steady and grounding. Inside, the light shifted, becoming softer as it filtered through wooden beams and small openings in the walls. The horses were already awake. Some stood quietly in their stalls, heads lowered as they chewed on fresh hay. Others shifted their weight, their hooves making soft, dull sounds against the packed ground. A low breath here, a gentle snort there. These small sounds filled the space with a peaceful life of their own. The knight paused at the entrance. For a moment he simply listened. There was something calming in the presence of the horses. They did not rush. They did not worry about what would come next. They lived in the present moment, steady and aware. It was easy to feel that same calm while standing among them. He moved toward a familiar stall. Inside stood his horse, strong and patient. The animal turned its head slightly, recognizing his presence. There was no sudden movement, only a quiet acknowledgement. The knight reached out, placing a hand gently along the horse's neck. The warmth of the animal met his touch. He moved his hand slowly, brushing along the coarse hair, feeling the steady strength beneath. This was not a task to be rushed. Caring for a horse required patience, attention, and a quiet understanding. A stable hand approached, carrying a brush and a small bucket of water. The two exchanged a brief nod. Words were not needed here. Each knew their role, and together they began the simple work. The brushing started slowly. Long, even strokes moved along the horse's side. Dust and loose hair lifted away, carried gently into the air before settling again. The horse stood calmly, occasionally shifting its weight, but never pulling away. Time seemed to stretch in these moments. The knight checked the hooves one by one, lifting each carefully, inspecting for stones or wear. Each movement was deliberate. Each detail mattered. The bond between knight and horse was built through these quiet routines, repeated day after day. Outside, the sounds of the castle continued faintly. Voices in the distance, the creak of a cart, the soft clang of metal from a far corner where tools were being arranged. But here, inside the stable, everything felt softer, more contained. When the grooming was done, the knight stepped back. The horse looked calmer now, its coat smoother, its posture relaxed. The knight allowed himself a small moment of stillness, standing beside the animal, sharing the quiet space. Soon it would be time to prepare for riding, but there was no rush to begin. Instead, he moved to gather the saddle and tack. Leather straps, worn but well cared for, rested neatly along the wall. He lifted them slowly, checking each piece with practiced hands. Nothing was overlooked. A loose strap or worn buckle could lead to trouble later. Care now meant ease later. The saddle was placed gently across the horse's back. Straps were fastened, not too tight, not too loose. Each movement followed a rhythm learned over many years. The horse remained still, accustomed to the process. When everything was ready, the knight led the horse outside. The sunlight had grown brighter now, filling the yard with a soft glow. The sky stretched wide and open above, a pale blue with only the faintest trace of cloud. The day felt steady, predictable, calm. He mounted slowly. There was no sudden movement, no display of force, just a smooth, practiced motion. Once seated, he adjusted slightly, settling into a comfortable balance. For a moment, he did nothing. He simply sat, feeling the gentle shift of the horse beneath him, listening to the quiet sounds of the day. The world did not press him forward. There was time. At last, he guided the horse into a slow walk. They moved across the yard and through the open gate, leaving the stone walls behind. Beyond them, the land opened into wide fields and narrow paths. Grass moved lightly in the breeze. The last traces of morning mist had lifted, revealing the full stretch of the countryside. The ride was not fast. There was no need for speed. The horse moved at a steady pace, each step soft and even. The night allowed the rhythm to carry him, his body moving gently with each motion. It was a familiar feeling, one that required little thought. They followed a worn path. On either side, fields extended into the distance. Some were freshly turned, dark soil resting quietly under the sun. Others held early growth, green shoots rising in neat lines. Farther away, a small group of villagers worked slowly, their movements calm and steady. The night passed them without interruption. A few glanced up, offering a small nod. He returned the gesture. No words were exchanged. There was no need to disturb the quiet balance of the day. The ride continued. Birds crossed the sky in loose patterns. A distant tree line marked the edge of the land, its leaves barely moving in the light breeze. The sounds were soft, hoofbeats against the earth, the whisper of wind, the occasional call of a bird. Nothing felt urgent. This time outside the castle was part of the night's day, not always for duty, but often for awareness, to see the land, to understand its condition, to remain connected to the quiet world beyond stone walls. After a while, the night guided the horse to a slower pace, then to a gentle stop. He looked out across the fields. There was a stillness here that was different from the castle, wider, more open, the kind of quiet that seemed to stretch endlessly, without boundary. He remained there for a time. Then, with the same calm intention, he turned the horse and began the slow journey back. The castle would be waiting, and the day, still long and unhurried, would continue to unfold in its own steady way.
The return to the castle came as gently as the ride away. The path curved back through the open fields, now fully touched by the late morning sun. The light had changed, becoming warmer, settling softly across the land. The air felt a little drier, carrying faint traces of grass and soil warmed by the growing day. The horse moved at the same steady pace. There was no need to hurry back. The night allowed the quiet rhythm of the journey to continue, each step measured and calm. The castle walls slowly grew larger ahead, their tall shape rising from the earth as if they had always belonged there. At the gate, a guard stood watch. He nodded as the knight approached, a small gesture of recognition. The heavy wooden gate remained open, allowing the easy passage of those who belonged within. As the knight passed through, the sounds of the outer world softened once more, replaced by the familiar stillness of the castle grounds. Inside, the yard carried a different kind of life. A few workers moved about their tasks. A cart rested near one wall, its wooden frame creaking softly as it settled. Somewhere nearby, metal touched metal with a quiet, rhythmic sound, perhaps a blacksmith shaping a tool or repairing a piece of armor. The knight guided his horse back toward the stable. Dismounting was as calm as mounting had been. His boots touched the ground with a soft thud. He stood for a moment beside the horse, his hand resting lightly against its side, as if marking the end of the ride with a quiet pause. Inside the stable, the air felt cool again. The saddle was removed slowly, each strap loosened with care. The knight worked in silence, his movements steady and practiced. The horse lowered its head, already at ease, as if it understood that the work of the morning had come to an end. Fresh hay was placed in the stall. Water was checked and refilled. The knight ran his hand once more along the horse's neck, a simple gesture, but one that held a quiet meaning,
built over many days. Then, without rush, he stepped away. Outside, the castle had settled into the middle of the day. The light now filled the courtyard completely, touching every surface with a soft brightness. Shadows had shortened, gathering close to walls and beneath objects. The air carried the gentle warmth of the sun, not harsh, but steady. It was time for the midday meal. The great hall, once quiet in the early morning, now held a low hum of activity. People moved in and out with quiet purpose. Long tables had been prepared again, simple wooden surfaces ready to receive the day's food. The knight entered without ceremony. He took his place along one of the benches, sitting with the same calm presence he had carried throughout the morning. Around him others gathered, fellow knights, men-at-arms, and those who worked within the castle walls. The meal was modest. Bowls of porridge, thicker than in the morning, bread still coarse but fresh, perhaps some cooked vegetables, occasionally a small portion of meat, depending on what was available. A jug of ale passed slowly from hand to hand. There was quiet conversation. Voices remained low, never rising above a gentle murmur. Words were exchanged without urgency, small observations, simple matters, nothing that disturbed the steady rhythm of the day. The knight ate slowly. Each bite was taken without distraction. There was no rush to finish. The act of eating itself felt like part of the day's quiet pattern, something to be done with care, without excess. Light filtered through the high windows, falling across the tables in soft lines. Dust moved lazily in the air, visible only where the sunlight touched it. The air felt warm, steady, enclosed. Time passed. Gradually, the meal came to an end. People rose one by one, returning to their duties. The sound of benches shifting against the floor echoed softly, then faded. The great hall began to empty again, returning to a quieter state. The knight remained seated for a moment longer. There was no need to move immediately. He allowed the stillness to return, letting the calm settle once more around him. Eventually, he stood. The next part of the day would be different. Not more difficult, not more urgent, but more deliberate. It was time to prepare for the responsibilities that required greater focus. For a knight, this often meant the use of armor. He made his way through the corridors, where the air felt cooler again. Stone walls held the quiet of the interior, protecting it from the warmth outside. His footsteps echoed softly, a steady rhythm that matched the pace of his breathing. At last, he reached a smaller chamber. This was where his armor was kept. The room was simple but orderly. Along one wall stood a wooden rack holding pieces of metal shaped to fit the body. A helmet rested carefully on a stand. Nearby, a padded garment hung ready, the first layer, worn beneath the heavier pieces. The knight paused before beginning. Armor was not something to be put on quickly. It required time, attention, and often the help of another. Each piece had its place. Each strap and buckle needed to be secured properly. A mistake here could lead to discomfort, or worse, during later tasks. He began with the padded layer. The fabric felt thick, designed to soften the weight of the metal that would follow. He adjusted it carefully, ensuring it sat evenly across his shoulders and chest. A helper entered quietly. There was no need for a greeting. The two had done this many times before. Together they worked in silence, lifting each piece of armor and setting it into place. First, the breastplate. Cool metal touched the fabric beneath, its weight settling slowly against the knight's body. Straps were pulled and fastened at the sides, tightened just enough to hold firm without restricting movement. Next came the arm guards. Each piece was aligned carefully, covering the joints while allowing them to bend. The helper's hands moved with practiced ease, securing each strap with quiet precision. The process continued. Layer by layer, the armor came together. Leg pieces, gloves, and finally the helmet, which for now was left resting nearby. As the weight increased, the knight adjusted his stance. Armor changed the way the body moved. It required balance, awareness, and a steady control of motion. He shifted slightly, testing the fit, ensuring that everything felt as it should. There was no discomfort, only a quiet readiness. When the final adjustments were made, the helper stepped back. The knight stood still for a moment. The room was silent. He could feel the weight of the armor, not as a burden, but as something familiar, something that had become part of his daily life, as natural as the morning light or the evening quiet. He reached for the helmet. For now, he held it at his side. There was still time before it would be needed. Outside, the day continued its slow, steady course. The sun remained high, the air calm, the world unchanged in its quiet rhythm. And within the castle walls, the knight, now fully prepared, stood ready to move into the next part of his day, one moment at a time, without haste, without noise, carried by the same gentle flow that had guided him since the morning began.
The afternoon settled quietly over the castle. The brightness of midday softened just slightly, as if the light itself had grown more relaxed. Shadows began to stretch again, slowly lengthening across the stone ground of the courtyard. The air remained warm, but no longer carried the rising energy of the morning. Instead, it held a gentle stillness. The knight stepped out from the chamber, now dressed in full armor. Each movement was measured. The weight of the metal did not rush him. Instead, it guided him into a slower, more deliberate pace. His steps echoed softly through the corridor, the faint sound of metal brushing against itself, blending into a quiet rhythm. He carried his helmet at his side. For now, there was no need to cover his face. The open air called for breath and space. The helmet would come later, if needed. As he entered the courtyard, the world felt slightly different. Not louder, not busier, just more settled. A few others moved about, each within their own task. A pair of guards stood near the gate, their posture steady and patient. A servant crossed the yard carrying folded cloth. Somewhere, unseen, a door closed gently. The knight made his way toward the outer wall. Afternoon duty often brought him here. The wall rose high above the land, its stones thick and strong, shaped over many years. A narrow staircase led upward, winding slowly toward the top. The knight placed his hand against the wall as he climbed, feeling the coolness of the stone even in the warmth of the day. Each step was steady. There was no rush to reach the top. When he emerged onto the wall, the view opened wide before him. The countryside stretched far into the distance. Fields, trees, and narrow paths lay quiet under the soft light of the afternoon. The sky remained clear, a pale and endless blue. A light breeze moved across the wall. It touched the knight's armor with a faint whisper, carrying with it the distant scent of earth and grass. He paused for a moment, allowing the air to pass over him, cooling the warmth beneath the metal. Nearby, another guard stood watch. They exchanged a quiet nod. No words were spoken. None were needed. The act of standing there, of watching over the land, was shared and understood without explanation. The knight took his place. He rested his hands lightly along the edge of the stone, looking outward.
There was no immediate task to complete, no sudden action required. Duty, at times, was simply this: being present, being aware, allowing the eyes to move slowly across the land. Time passed gently. A cart moved along a distant path, its wheels turning slowly. A small group of villagers walked together, their shapes barely more than shadows from this height. Birds drifted through the sky, their wings steady as they crossed from one horizon to the other. Nothing seemed out of place. The knight shifted his weight slightly, adjusting to the steady hold of the armor. The metal warmed under the sun, though the breeze kept it from growing too heavy. His breathing remained calm, slow, even. From time to time, he walked along the length of the wall. Each step carried a soft echo against the stone. His gaze moved carefully, not searching for anything specific, but taking in everything at once. The quiet land, the distant movement, the gentle stillness that seemed to rest over all things. Below, the castle continued its quiet life. In the courtyard, figures moved slowly. At the stables, a door opened and closed. From the great hall, faint sounds drifted outward, perhaps the clearing of dishes, the preparation for the evening meal still far ahead. The world did not demand his attention. It simply existed, steady and calm. After a while, the knight came to a stop near a corner of the wall. Here, the view shifted slightly. A small stream could be seen winding through the fields, its surface catching the light in soft, quiet reflections. Trees gathered along its edges, their leaves barely stirring. He watched the water for a time. There was something restful in its slow movement. The afternoon carried on. The sun began its gradual descent, though it would be some time before evening truly arrived. The light softened further, turning warmer, more golden. The edges of shadows blurred gently, as if the world itself were beginning to relax. The knight remained at his post. There was no urgency in his duty, only presence, only awareness. From time to time, another guard would pass, their footsteps quiet, their movements calm. They would exchange a glance, perhaps a slight nod, then continue on their way. The routine was shared, familiar, unspoken. At last, as the hours moved forward, a subtle shift signaled the nearing end of this part of the day. It was not announced, it was simply felt. The light had changed enough. The air had cooled slightly. The long stretch of stillness had reached its natural close. The knight stepped back from the wall. He took one last look across the land, his gaze steady and unhurried. Everything remained as it should be, calm, quiet, unchanged. Then he turned. The staircase awaited, winding downward once more into the quiet spaces of the castle. His steps followed the same slow rhythm as before, each one echoing softly as he descended. Below, the courtyard greeted him again. The light now held a softer tone. The day was gently leaning toward evening, though there was still time before the sun would set. The knight crossed the yard. His armor moved with him, steady and familiar. There was no discomfort, only the quiet presence of its weight. He carried his helmet still, untouched, as he made his way back toward the inner chambers. The next moments would be simpler. The armor would be removed, the body would rest, the evening would arrive slowly, just as the morning had. And through it all, the same gentle rhythm would continue, unchanged, unbroken, guiding the knight through the quiet passage of his day.
The late afternoon drifted gently toward evening. The light across the courtyard had softened into a warmer tone, touching the stone walls with a quiet glow. Long shadows stretched across the ground, reaching slowly from one side to the other. The air, once warm with the fullness of the day,
began to cool just slightly. The knight moved steadily across the yard. His steps remained slow, guided by the weight of the armor he still wore. There was no strain in his movement, only a quiet awareness of each step, each small shift of balance. The sounds of the castle had grown softer now, as if the entire place were beginning to settle. He entered the corridor once more. Inside, the air felt cooler, holding the calm stillness of stone. The light here was dimmer, filtered through narrow windows and flickering gently from torches placed along the walls. Their flames moved softly, casting faint shadows that danced without urgency. The knight made his way back to the chamber where his armor was kept. The room welcomed him with silence. He paused just inside the doorway, allowing a moment of stillness to settle around him. The day had been long, but not in a tiring way. It had moved gently, one moment flowing into the next, without rush, without strain. Now it was time to let the weight of the armor fall away. The helper returned as quietly as before. Without words, they began the process. First, the helmet was set aside. Then came the gloves, removed slowly, freeing the hands from their enclosed space. The knight flexed his fingers slightly, feeling the return of open air against his skin. Each small movement carried a sense of release. The arm pieces were next. Straps were loosened carefully, one by one. The metal lifted away, revealing the softer layers beneath. The knight stood still, allowing each piece to be removed in its time. There was no need to hurry. The process itself was part of the day's rhythm. The breastplate followed. Its weight, once settled firmly against his body, was lifted and placed gently aside. The air felt lighter without it. His breathing remained steady, but now there was more space, more ease. Piece by piece, the armor was set down. Each item returned to its place along the wooden rack, arranged with care so it would be ready again when needed. Nothing was left out of order. Everything followed a quiet sense of balance. At last, only the padded garment remained. The knight removed it slowly, replacing it with a simple tunic once more. The fabric felt light against his skin, a gentle contrast to the weight he had carried throughout the day. The helper stepped back. A small nod was exchanged. Then, just as quietly as he had arrived, the helper left the room. The knight remained alone. For a moment he did nothing. He simply stood there, feeling the stillness return, the quiet space settling around him. The absence of the armor was noticeable, not as something missing, but as a soft release. He moved toward the window. Outside, the sky had begun to change. The pale blue of the afternoon was slowly deepening, touched now with hints of gold and soft amber. The sun had lowered, though it had not yet reached the horizon. Its light spread gently across the land, warming everything it touched. The knight watched in silence. There was no need to think ahead, no need to plan the next moment. The day was already moving toward its natural close. After some time, he turned away. Evening would bring its own simple routines. He stepped back into the corridor, his movements now lighter without the armor. The castle felt quieter than before. Fewer footsteps echoed through the halls. Voices had softened, becoming rare and distant. The great hall awaited once more. When he entered, it was already prepared for the evening meal. Candles had been lit along the tables, their small flames steady and calm. The hearth had been rekindled, a gentle fire now burning, casting a warm glow across the room. Shadows moved slowly along the walls, shaped by the flicker of light. The night took his place. Others gathered quietly, just as they had before. The same familiar faces, the same calm presence. There was comfort in this repetition, in the steady return of shared moments. The evening meal was slightly more filling. Bread, still simple but warm. A thicker stew, perhaps, carrying the scent of vegetables and herbs. Occasionally a bit more meat than earlier in the day. The flavors were plain but steady, offering quiet nourishment. He ate slowly. The warmth of the food matched the warmth of the room. The fire crackled softly, its sound blending with the low murmur of voices. No one spoke loudly, no one disturbed the calm. Outside, the light continued to fade. Through the high windows, the sky shifted toward deeper tones. Gold softened into orange, then into a quiet shade of blue that hinted at the coming night. Time passed gently. When the meal ended, there was no rush to leave. Some remained seated, resting in the calm space. Others stood and moved quietly toward their next tasks. The rhythm of the castle slowed further, as if preparing for rest. The knight rose at last. He stepped away from the table, his movements unhurried. The warmth of the hall lingered behind him as he returned once more to the quiet corridors. The evening had nearly arrived. Soon the castle would settle into the deeper stillness of night. Torches would burn lower, voices would fade almost entirely. The world beyond the walls would grow quiet under the open sky. For now, there was only this in-between. The knight walked slowly, his footsteps soft against the stone, as the final light of the day slipped quietly toward darkness. And the calm, steady rhythm that had carried him from morning until now continued unbroken, guiding him gently into the peaceful hours ahead.
The evening slowly gave way to night. Within the castle walls, the last traces of daylight faded gently, slipping through the narrow windows before disappearing entirely. What remained was a soft glow of candlelight and firelight, steady and warm against the cool stone. The knight moved quietly through the corridor. His steps were lighter now, no longer shaped by the weight of armor. The air felt still, carrying only the faint scent of burning wood and melted wax. Torches along the walls flickered softly, their flames bending slightly as a gentle draft passed through the halls. There were fewer sounds now. The castle, once filled with the quiet activity of the day, had begun to rest. Doors closed gently. Footsteps became rare. Voices, when they appeared, were low and brief, fading quickly into silence. The knight reached his chamber. Inside, the room held a calm, familiar stillness. The small table remained where it had been that morning. The clay cup rested untouched. A candle, newly lit, cast a soft circle of light that did not reach the far corners of the room. He closed the door slowly behind him. For a moment he stood in place. There was no urgency to prepare for sleep. The day had already begun to release its hold, one quiet moment at a time. His breathing was steady. His body, no longer burdened by armor or duty, felt at ease. He moved toward a small basin of water. The surface reflected the candlelight in soft, wavering patterns. He dipped his hands into the cool water, lifting it gently to his face. The sensation was simple, refreshing without sharpness. He repeated the motion slowly, allowing the quiet act to mark the passing of the day. Nearby, a cloth rested neatly folded.
He used it to dry his hands, then set it back in place. Each movement was calm, deliberate. There was no rush, no need to move from one task to the next. The night welcomed slowness. It asked for nothing more than quiet presence. He removed the outer layer of his clothing, setting each piece aside with care. What remained was simple and light, suited for rest. The coolness of the stone room brushed gently against his skin, balanced by the warmth of the candle's glow. The bed waited nearby. It was not large nor overly soft, but it was familiar. Layers of rough blankets lay folded, ready to be drawn close against the night air. The knight sat at the edge for a moment, allowing his body to settle. Outside, the world had grown very quiet. Through the narrow window, the sky had deepened into a dark, endless blue. A few faint stars had begun to appear, distant and steady. The land beyond the castle walls rested in silence, its details hidden beneath the calm of night. The knight lay down slowly. The blankets were pulled gently over him, their weight light but comforting. He adjusted slightly, finding a position that allowed his body to rest without effort. The candle continued to burn. Its flame moved softly, casting small, shifting shadows along the walls. The room felt enclosed, safe, untouched by anything beyond its stone boundaries. For a time he remained awake, not thinking, not planning, simply resting in the quiet space between day and sleep. The sounds of the castle had nearly disappeared now. Only the faintest echoes remained, distant and indistinct. Somewhere far away, a door closed. Then silence returned. His breathing slowed. Each breath came gently, without force. The steady rhythm matched the quiet stillness of the room. The body, having moved through the full passage of the day, now began to release its remaining tension. The candle burned lower. Its light softened further, shrinking into a smaller, warmer glow. The edges of the room faded into shadow, leaving only a quiet center of light. The knight's eyes grew heavy. There was no sudden moment of sleep, no clear line between waking and dreaming. Instead, it came slowly, like the fading of light at the end of the day. Outside, the stars held their place in the sky. The air remained still. The land rested without movement. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if honoring the calm of night. Within the chamber, the knight lay in silence. The steady rhythm of his breathing continued, soft and even. The weight of the blankets, the coolness of the air, the fading warmth of the candle, all of it blended into a quiet sense of rest. Time passed, though it was no longer felt. The candle, at last, burned low enough to fade. Its flame flickered once, gently, then disappeared. Darkness settled fully, and in that darkness the castle slept. The walls stood quiet beneath the night sky. The courtyard rested, empty and still. The fields beyond lay untouched, waiting for the first light of morning to return once more. Everything remained calm. Everything remained at peace. And as the night deepened, the steady, unbroken rhythm of life continued, soft, silent, and endless, carrying the night and the world around him into rest.
The night remained deep and still. Within the stone walls of the castle, everything rested in quiet balance. The darkness was complete now, no longer shaped by candlelight or movement. It settled gently across every surface, soft and even,
like a calm blanket placed over the world. The night slept. His breathing was slow and steady, rising and falling without effort. The long passage of the day had faded from his body, leaving behind only rest. There were no sounds to disturb him, no sudden movements, no interruptions, only stillness. Beyond his chamber, the castle held the same quiet. In the corridors, torches had burned low. Some had gone out entirely, leaving only faint traces of smoke that had long since disappeared into the cool air. The stone floors, once touched by many footsteps, now lay undisturbed. In the great hall, the fire had settled into a bed of glowing embers. A soft warmth remained, barely visible in the darkness. The long tables stood empty, their surfaces still, holding no trace of the day's meals except the quiet memory of their use. The courtyard outside rested under the open sky. Moonlight, pale and gentle, reached down from above, touching the stone with a faint silver glow. Shadows formed in soft shapes along the walls, unmoving and calm. The air felt cooler now, carrying the stillness of night across every corner of the castle. At the gate, a guard remained awake. His duty continued through the quiet hours, though even this carried no sense of strain. He stood with a relaxed stillness, his posture steady, his gaze calm as it moved slowly across the darkened land. There was little to see. The fields beyond lay silent, their shapes softened by the dim light. The paths were empty. The trees stood without movement, their leaves resting quietly in the night air. From time to time, the guard shifted his weight. A small movement, a quiet adjustment. The sound of it faded almost instantly, absorbed by the stillness around him. Above, the stars filled the sky. They stretched endlessly, small points of light scattered across the darkness. They did not flicker or move in any noticeable way. They simply remained, steady and distant, watching over the quiet world below. Hours passed without measure. There were no clocks to mark the time, no sounds to divide the night into clear moments. The passage of time was gentle, almost unnoticeable, like the slow drifting of clouds that could not be seen. Within the castle, all remained at rest. The knight did not stir. His sleep was deep, undisturbed by thought or motion. The weight of the blankets rested evenly over him, the cool air of the chamber balanced by their quiet warmth. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. The sound was soft, brief, and then gone. It did not disturb the calm. Instead, it seemed to belong to it, another gentle thread woven into the fabric of the night. The guard at the gate heard it. He turned his head slightly, listening for a moment, then returned to stillness. There was nothing unusual, nothing to interrupt the quiet passage of time. The castle walls stood firm. They had stood this way for many years, holding within them the lives of those who passed through their days in quiet routine. Tonight was no different. The same calm that had shaped the day now held the night in its steady embrace. The air grew cooler as the hours moved forward. The warmth of the day had fully faded, leaving behind a gentle chill that settled into the stone. It was not uncomfortable, only a natural shift, part of the slow turning of time. Inside the chamber, the knight remained still. His breathing continued, soft and even. There was no tension in his body, no movement beyond the quiet rhythm of rest. Outside, the sky began almost imperceptibly to change. At first, it was too subtle to notice. The darkness remained deep, the stars still clear, but somewhere far along the horizon, a faint light began to gather. It was not yet morning, only the earliest hint that night would not last forever. The guard at the gate remained at his post. He did not watch the horizon closely. There was no need. The coming of morning would arrive in its own time, just as the night had settled without effort. Within the castle, sleep continued. Each person rested in their own space, their own quiet corner of the stone walls. The rhythm of breathing, repeated again and again, filled the silence with a soft, steady life. Nothing rushed forward, nothing called for attention. The world remained at peace. And slowly, very slowly, the long stretch of night began to soften at its edges, preparing, without sound or signal, for the gentle return of light.
The first hint of morning arrived quietly. It did not come with sound or sudden light, but as a slow, gentle softening of the darkness. Along the distant horizon, a pale shade began to form, almost too faint to notice at first. The stars still held their place in the sky, but their brightness had begun to fade. The night was ending. Within the castle, all remained still. The knight lay resting in his chamber, his breathing deep and even. The quiet of sleep still held him, undisturbed by the subtle changes taking place beyond the stone walls. The room remained dark, though not as deeply as before. A soft, barely visible grayness had begun to replace the heavy black of night. Outside, the air felt cool and fresh. The land beyond the castle rested under a thin layer of morning mist, slowly forming as the temperature shifted. The trees stood silent, their shapes just beginning to return as the darkness lifted. At the gate, the guard remained. His watch had been long, but it had passed without trouble. He noticed the change in the sky, the way the horizon had begun to lighten. It was a familiar sight, one he had seen many times before. He shifted his stance slightly. The night was giving way. Soon another would take his place, and he would step away from his post, returning to rest as the day began again. Within the castle, a subtle stirring began. Not movement, not sound, just a quiet sense that the stillness would not last much longer. The world was preparing to wake, just as it had the day before and the day before that. In the knight's chamber, the light continued to grow. It slipped slowly through the narrow window, reaching across the stone floor in a thin, pale line. It touched the wall, the small table, the edge of the bed. Everything remained still, but the presence of light gently filled the space. The knight did not wake suddenly. There was no sharp moment, no clear beginning. Instead, his sleep began to ease. His breathing shifted slightly, becoming lighter, less deep. His body, once fully at rest, began to return slowly to awareness. It was a gradual change, one that unfolded without effort. Outside, the first bird called. The sound was soft, almost distant but clear in the quiet air. It was followed by another, then another, each joining in a gentle pattern that marked the beginning of the day. The sky grew brighter. The pale gray turned to soft blue, touched with the faintest hints of gold. The stars faded completely now, leaving the open sky clear and calm. Within the chamber, the knight's eyes opened. There was no rush to arise. He remained where he was, lying still beneath the blankets, listening. The sounds of morning returned slowly, the birds, the faint movement of air, the distant stirrings of life beginning once more. For a moment, he simply breathed. The quiet of the night had not fully left, and the energy of the day had not yet arrived. It was a gentle space between the two, calm and balanced. At last he moved. The blankets shifted softly as he sat up, his feet lowering to the cool stone floor.
The sensation was familiar, just as it had been the morning before. Nothing had changed, and yet the day was new. He stood slowly. The light now filled more of the room, revealing its simple details once again. The table, the cup, the candle now burned down to nothing, all remained as they had been. He dressed in the same quiet way, a linen shirt, a tunic, simple, comfortable, suited for the early hours. His movements were unhurried, guided by routine rather than thought. He moved to the window. Outside, the mist lay across the fields once more, just as it had the day before. The village in the distance was barely visible, its shapes softened by the early light. Smoke had not yet begun to rise from the chimneys. The world was still waking. The night watched in silence. There was a quiet comfort in the repetition of it all. The same land, the same sky, the same gentle return of morning. Nothing demanded change, nothing called for urgency. It was enough to simply begin again. He turned from the window. The corridor outside would soon hold the same soft echoes of movement. The great hall would prepare once more for the morning meal. The courtyard would fill again with the steady rhythm of training. Everything would follow its place. He stepped into the corridor. The air felt cool, carrying the last traces of night. A servant passed quietly, just as before, moving with careful steps, beginning the tasks of the day. The night nodded gently. The pattern had returned. He made his way toward the staircase, his hand brushing lightly against the stone as he descended. Each step felt familiar, shaped by repetition and quiet memory. Below, the great hall waited once more. The fire would soon be lit again. The tables would fill slowly. The simple meal would be shared in calm silence. The day had begun. Not with noise, not with sudden motion, but the same gentle unfolding that had carried it before. The night moved forward, one step at a time, returning to the quiet rhythm of his life, unchanged, steady, and endlessly calm. And so the cycle continued. Morning into day, day into evening, evening into night. Again and again, without rush, without end, each moment flowing softly into the next, like a calm and endless breath.
The morning, though familiar, was never exactly the same. Even within the steady rhythm of the night's life, small changes moved quietly through each day. On this morning, the air carried a slightly different feeling. The mist that rested across the fields seemed a little thicker, holding closer to the ground, as if reluctant to lift. From the narrow window, the land appeared softer, more distant. The knight noticed it, though he did not pause long on the thought. These changes were natural. The world moved in quiet cycles, just as his own days did. Nothing remained exactly the same, yet nothing felt truly different. He made his way down to the great hall once more. The fire had been lit again, its gentle warmth spreading slowly through the room. The smell of smoke, faint but steady, mixed with the scent of fresh bread. A few others had already gathered, seated quietly along the long wooden tables. The morning meal was much as it had been before. Simple, steady, enough. The knight ate in silence, his movements calm, his thoughts untroubled. Around him, the low murmur of voices rose and fell like a soft background rhythm, never interrupting the stillness that held the space together. When the meal ended, he stepped outside into the courtyard. The air felt cooler than the day before. A light breeze moved through the open space, brushing gently against his clothing. The mist had begun to lift, but it lingered longer than usual, stretching the early morning into something quieter, more subdued. Training began again.
The wooden dummies stood in their usual places. The practice weapons rested where they always had. Nothing had changed, yet the feel of the morning gave everything a slightly softer edge. The knight took up a wooden sword. His movements began slowly, just as before. A steady strike, a measured step. The rhythm returned easily, shaped by habit and quiet discipline. But today, the air seemed to carry each sound a little differently. The soft thud of wood against wood echoed just a bit longer. Footsteps pressed into the ground with a slightly deeper sound, as if the earth itself were holding more moisture beneath the surface. Other knights trained nearby. Their motions were the same, controlled, patient, but there was a shared awareness of the cooler air, the slower lifting of the mist. No one spoke of it. They simply moved within it, allowing the day to take its natural form. As time passed, the sun rose higher. Its light worked gently to clear the remaining mist, though it took longer than usual. The warmth it brought was softer, less immediate. Shadows formed slowly, stretching across the courtyard in faint lines. After training, the knight moved once more toward the stables. Inside, the horses seemed calmer than before. Perhaps it was the cooler air, perhaps it was simply the quiet nature of the day. They stood with a relaxed stillness, their movements minimal, their breathing slow. The knight approached his horse. As always, the animal acknowledged him with a small turn of the head. There was no sudden motion, no impatience, just quiet recognition. He began the familiar routine, brushing, checking, adjusting. Each movement carried the same steady care as before, yet the pace felt even slower today. The air within the stable held a gentle coolness, making the space feel enclosed and calm. Outside, the breeze moved softly through the open doorway. It carried with it the faint scent of damp earth and distant grass. The knight paused for a brief moment, his hand resting along the horse's neck, feeling the warmth beneath its coat. There was no need to rush the next step. Eventually, the saddle was placed, the straps secured, and the horse led outside. The ride began again. But today the land felt different. The path was slightly darker beneath the horse's hooves, holding traces of moisture. The fields, though still and quiet, carried a deeper shade of green. The sky above remained pale, touched with thin clouds that drifted slowly across its surface. The knight guided the horse at the same steady pace. There was no change in his movement, only a quiet awareness of the subtle differences around him. The breeze continued to move, light but constant, brushing gently against his face. In the distance, the village appeared as it had before, yet even there small changes could be seen. A figure moved more slowly along the path. A cart rested where it had not been the day before. Smoke rose later than usual from the chimneys, as if the morning itself had taken longer to begin. The knight rode on. He did not question these changes. He did not need to. They were part of the world, just as his own routine was part of his life. After some time, he brought the horse to a gentle stop. The fields stretched out before him, quiet and open. The breeze moved through the grass in soft waves, barely visible but steady. He remained there for a moment. The cooler air, the softer light, the slower pace of the morning, all of it created a deeper sense of calm. The world seemed to rest more fully in itself, without any need to move forward too quickly. Then, as always, he turned back. The return to the castle followed the same path, the same quiet rhythm. The walls rose again before him, unchanged and steady. Inside, the day would continue. The midday meal, the preparation of armor, the quiet duties of the afternoon. Each part would unfold just as it had before, yet always shaped slightly by the gentle changes of the world around him. As the knight passed once more through the gate, the sounds of the castle welcomed him back. Soft footsteps, distant voices, the quiet work of many hands moving through the day. Nothing had truly changed, yet everything carried its own small difference. The rhythm remained unbroken. The calm continued, and the day moved forward, slowly and gently, just as it always had.
The day wore on slowly, but today the weather had decided to change. A quiet rain had begun to fall. At first, it was only a few scattered drops, soft and almost unnoticed, as they touched the stone courtyard. Then more joined in, each one landing with a gentle pat, a muted sound that blended with the rhythm of the castle walls. The air felt heavier, cooler, carrying the faint scent of wet earth. Mist rose from the ground in thin, quiet waves, curling softly around the base of the walls. The courtyard, once bright and clear, now shimmered with the reflection of the damp stones. The knight remained indoors. The armor stayed on its rack, untouched, while the wooden floor beneath him creaked faintly under his movement. The quiet dripping from the roof above, the soft tapping of rain against narrow windows, and the distant rustle of leaves beyond the walls created a serene melody, steady and calming. He moved slowly through the corridors. Every step was deliberate. The stone felt cool beneath his feet, solid and grounding. Torches along the walls flickered gently, casting long shadows that swayed in rhythm with the tiny drafts of air stirred by the rain. The light here was soft, warm, and comforting. The great hall awaited for the midday meal. Candles had been lit to supplement the gray light filtering through the windows. A fire burned steadily in the hearth, its warmth offering quiet contrast to the cool, damp air outside. The tables, long and plain, were prepared with bowls and simple wooden cups. The aroma of bread and porridge rose gently, mingling with the faint scent of smoke from the fire. The knight took his place. Others had gathered quietly, moving without hurry. Their voices, low and measured, blended seamlessly with the soft patter of rain. There was no rush, no clatter, no demand. Each bite of bread, each sip of warm broth was taken with patience and calm. After the meal, the knight turned to indoor duties. The rain outside kept him from the courtyard or the training yard. Instead, he attended to smaller, quieter tasks. A sword needed oiling. Its metal surface was polished slowly, each movement careful, methodical. A set of leather straps required attention. He bent over them with measured precision, the soft sound of leather and thread filling the room. Sometimes he paused to watch the rain. Through narrow windows, water ran in thin lines down the glass. The fields beyond the walls were blurred and softened by the gray veil of precipitation. Trees bent slightly under the weight of the falling droplets. The sound was steady, a gentle cadence, unbroken, like a lullaby of the world itself. The hours passed without notice. Time did not demand recognition. It flowed quietly, marked only by the gradual movement of shadows across the stone floor and the slow dimming of the day outside. Later, the knight tended to the horses indoors. The animals were restless with the rain outside. Their hooves tapped softly against the stall floors, a rhythmic echo in the calm hallways of the stable. He brushed them with gentle strokes, spoke to them in low tones, adjusting their blankets to keep them warm and dry. The simple repetition of care became a meditation, each motion soft and continuous. The rain intensified briefly. It drummed lightly on the roof above, and the mist beyond the walls thickened into near-white veils. Yet the castle remained a haven of calm. Every stone, every timber, every flickering flame seemed to absorb the rain's quiet energy and transform it into serenity. By late afternoon, the rain had softened to a steady drizzle. The knight returned to his chamber, carrying nothing but a quiet sense of the day's passage.
The stone floor felt slightly damp under his bare feet, but not unpleasant. The room welcomed him with the warm embrace of the hearth, still glowing softly from the earlier fire. He sat briefly by the window. The world outside shimmered with rain, muted colors and softened edges. The horizon was blurred. Trees seemed almost painted into the mist. The night's gaze drifted across it, not searching for anything, not expecting any change, only observing, only resting. Evening approached. The fire was stoked again, and candles were lit to maintain a soft, steady glow. The meal would be simple, as it always was on such days. Everyone moved quietly, their actions precise, rhythmic, calm. No rush, no fuss, just the slow, continuous flow of life inside the castle walls. The knight's body felt right, without armor, without the sun's heat, without the day's exertions. There was only the gentle awareness of presence. The room, the castle, the rain, the soft flicker of flames, all converged into a single calming rhythm. As night deepened, the rain finally lessened. It left behind a moist, earthy scent, a softened world, and quiet echoes of water dripping from the roof and walls. The castle seemed to sigh in relief, carrying the weight of the day gently into rest. The knight prepared for sleep. He followed the same slow routine, washing hands, arranging blankets, settling into the familiar bed. The room felt slightly cooler, the smell of wet stone and wood still present, but comforting. The rhythmic dripping of the final rain against the window became a lullaby, steady and soft. Lying down, he allowed his body to relax completely. The breath deepened and evened out. Every muscle softened. The quiet sounds of the castle, the rain's residual whisper, and the steady flicker of the hearth combined into a singular sense of peace. Outside, the night fully arrived. The stars were hidden behind the lingering clouds. The wind was gentle. The world seemed paused, waiting, resting, calm and still. And within this quiet, the night drifted into sleep. Each breath, each pulse, each heartbeat, a soft continuation of the world's gentle rhythm. The day, the rain, the indoor calm, all merged into a singular, endless serenity, carrying him slowly into the quiet, deep night.
Winter arrived quietly, without announcement. The castle walls seemed heavier now, their stones colder to the touch. Outside, the fields were blanketed in frost, each blade of grass coated in a thin, sparkling layer that caught the pale winter sun. The air was still, crisp, and clear, carrying a quiet that made each sound sharper, yet strangely gentle. The knight awoke to a softer, colder light. The small window of his chamber let in the early morning glow, pale and almost silver against the stone. His breath made faint clouds as he sat up, feeling the chill of the room. The blankets were thick, layered, offering warmth but not weight. He moved slowly, stretching arms and shoulders, aware of each motion, letting the cold push him gently awake without force. The corridors were quieter than usual. Fewer servants were moving about in the early hours. The fire in the hallways burned low overnight, leaving behind embers that glowed faintly against the chill. The knight's footsteps echoed softly as he descended the stairs, the sound muted by the thick, cold air that filled the space. Breakfast was simple, a bowl of warm porridge, some bread, and perhaps a bit of cheese. The meal was slow, deliberate. Each spoonful was a soft rhythm in the quiet hall. Candles flickered on the tables, and the hearth provided steady warmth, its gentle crackle blending with the occasional whistle of wind pressing against the castle walls. Outside, the world was hushed by frost. Even the trees appeared frozen in place, their bare branches etched against the pale winter sky.
The fields lay white, stretching outward in soft, muted tones. The wind carried only whispers, brushing against the castle walls in long, slow sighs. The knight spent most of the day indoors. Armor remained untouched on the racks. The wooden practice sword stayed in the armory. Instead, he moved from task to task in slow, measured motions. Leather needed oiling, weapons required inspection, and the rooms themselves were tidied quietly. Each task had its own rhythm: the brush against leather, the soft scrape of metal, the careful folding of cloth. The subtle, repeated movements became a meditation, one that carried him through the long winter hours. There was no hurry, no need to complete anything quickly. Each action existed in its own time, its own space, steady and calming. From the window, the frost glimmered faintly. The sunlight, though weak, reflected off it in delicate, shifting patterns. The knight paused often to watch, feeling a subtle calm spread through him as the quiet beauty of the frozen fields held his gaze. The great hall in the afternoon felt warmer. The fire had been rekindled, filling the space with a gentle, soft heat. The smell of wood smoke blended with simple foods: bread, warm stew, perhaps some roasted vegetables. Knights and servants moved slowly, quietly, each step measured, contributing to the gentle rhythm of winter life. Sometimes he simply sat. In the quiet corners, the knight would rest for a few moments, letting the fire's warmth seep into his hands and feet. The shadows from the flickering flames moved softly along the walls, stretching and shrinking in a slow, hypnotic pattern. There was nothing to do but exist in this calm, letting the long winter day unfold naturally. As evening approached, the air outside grew colder still. Frost began to form along the narrow window panes, delicate patterns traced in thin ice. The courtyard lay empty, its stones hardened by the chill. Even the stable animals rested quietly, huddled together for warmth. The knight prepared for supper. The meal was simple, warm, and nourishing. The smell of roasted meat, root vegetables, and hot broth filled the hall. The candles cast gentle light across the faces of those gathered, each expression relaxed and calm. Conversation was minimal, measured, almost whispered, blending seamlessly with the soft sound of wind and the occasional crackle from the fire. Afterward, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn close, the room quiet and cold but welcoming. A small candle flickered nearby, casting soft shadows that danced gently across the stone walls. The silence was complete, except for the faint rhythm of his breathing, slow and even, in harmony with the steady tick of time itself. He lay down. The cold outside made the blankets feel heavier, warmer, and closing him in a gentle cocoon. Each breath deepened, filling him with calm. The frost patterns on the window caught the candlelight and shimmered faintly, like tiny stars suspended in glass. The night grew longer, quieter, softer. Snow began to fall lightly beyond the walls, each flake melting against the stone or landing silently on the ground. The sound was almost imperceptible, yet it added to the lullaby of the winter night. The night drifted into sleep. There was no sudden moment, no abrupt shift, only a gentle release, the body settling fully into rest. The soft warmth of the blankets, the faint candlelight, the distant echo of snow and wind outside, all carried him slowly into calm, peaceful slumber. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, and the cold floors all embraced the quiet of night. Every room, every corridor, every stairway held the same serene stillness, echoing the rhythm of life slowed to the pace of deep winter. And in this calm, the world remained steady. The night slept, the castle slept, the frost lay quiet across the land, and time itself seemed to pause, folding gently into the endless rhythm of peace, rest, and soft, unbroken calm.
Spring arrived quietly, without fanfare, like a slow unfolding of a soft green ribbon across the land. The frost and snow of winter had receded. In their place, the earth was damp and rich, carrying the faint scent of new growth. Tiny shoots of green pushed through the soil. Buds appeared on the trees, delicate and pale, trembling gently in the cool morning air. The knight awoke to this change. The light entering his chamber was softer now, golden-tinged and warm, spilling across the stone floor and casting gentle patterns along the walls. His breath no longer clouded the air. Instead, it was steady and calm, blending with the quiet sounds of life returning beyond the castle walls. He rose slowly. Each movement was deliberate. The blankets were folded back with care. The cool stone beneath his feet felt less biting, tempered by the warmth of the sun slowly stretching across the courtyard. The corridors echoed with gentle activity. Servants moved quietly, tending fires and preparing breakfast. The smell of warm porridge, fresh bread, and herbs filled the air. The soft clatter of wooden utensils, the quiet murmur of voices, and the occasional creak of a door all blended into a serene rhythm that accompanied the morning. The knight dressed carefully. A linen shirt, a tunic of soft wool, and boots laced snugly. His movements were calm and unhurried, guided by habit rather than thought. The light of morning touched each surface as he passed, revealing the simple beauty of the castle: polished wood, smooth stone, and flickering flames in the hearth. He made his way outside. The courtyard was transformed. The cold of winter had given way to the freshness of spring. The stones were dry, though still cool underfoot. The air carried a faint fragrance of soil and budding leaves. Small birds moved quietly along the walls and trees, calling to one another in the gentle sunlight. Training began slowly. Wooden dummies were set up in familiar spots. Practice weapons were lifted carefully, each strike deliberate and measured. The knight's movements were steady, flowing, and soft. The rhythm of steps on the courtyard stones, the thud of wood against wood, and the occasional clink of leather combined into a quiet melody of motion. Other knights joined him. They moved in unison, yet each followed their own pace. Their steps were careful, measured, and unobtrusive. Voices, when they appeared, were low and calm, blending seamlessly with the soft chirping of birds and the distant rustle of leaves. The sunlight grew warmer. It touched the tops of trees, casting long, gentle shadows across the courtyard. The mist of early morning had lifted entirely, leaving the land bright yet peaceful. The scent of fresh grass and damp earth carried faintly into the castle walls. After training, the knight tended to the horses. The animals were lively with the warmer air and the soft scents of spring. He brushed them carefully, adjusting their blankets and checking their hooves. The soft sound of brushing, the gentle nicker of the horses, and the rhythmic tapping of hooves on stone floors created a serene harmony. The midday meal was calm. Inside the great hall, the fire burned steadily. Warm bowls of stew and bread were set on the tables. Everyone moved with soft, purposeful steps. The smell of cooked vegetables and warm bread mingled with the faint scent of spring air drifting through slightly open windows. After the meal, the knight walked slowly along the walls. The view beyond the ramparts was gentle and steady. Green fields stretched into the distance. The trees swayed softly in the light wind.
A small stream moved quietly through the land, its water glinting like scattered silver in the sunlight. He paused to observe. There was no hurry. The world was soft and calm. Every detail, the sway of a branch, the shimmer of water, the distant calls of birds, was a quiet reminder of the slow unfolding of life. As afternoon arrived, the training yard was abandoned. The knight returned indoors for quieter tasks. Leather needed care, weapons required inspection, and rooms were tidied carefully. Each motion was unhurried, each task a gentle exercise in patience and calm. The light shifted slowly. Golden tones filled the corridors and chambers. Shadows lengthened and softened. The warmth of the stone reminded the knight that the day would not rush. Every moment was steady, measured, and quiet. Evening approached. Candles were lit, and the hearth glowed softly. The knight took his supper in silence. The soft flicker of flame and the gentle warmth of the room carried a deep sense of peace. The faint sounds of the wind, the trees, and the distant village created a gentle background, unbroken and calming. He prepared for bed slowly. Blankets were arranged with care. Hands were washed in cool water. The quiet of the room embraced him. Every detail of the chamber bathed in soft, steady light. He lay down. The warmth of the blankets, the faint glow of the candle, the gentle sense of the castle, all merged into a serene whole. His breathing slowed, deepened, and evened out. Outside, the spring night settled quietly. Stars appeared, soft and distant. The wind moved lightly through the trees. The castle itself seemed to exhale, a slow and steady sigh that carried the entire world into calm. And the night drifted into sleep once more. Each breath, each moment, each soft sound became part of a continuous, endless rhythm. The life of the castle, the quiet land beyond, and the gentle unfolding of days and nights all merged into the same slow, comforting heartbeat. Time flowed, softly, endlessly, peacefully.
Summer arrived gently, though with a quiet warmth that slowly grew as the days passed. The sun rose higher in the sky, spreading soft golden light across the castle walls and the surrounding fields. The air carried the scent of warm earth, growing grass, and faint wildflowers. Bees moved lazily among the blooms, their gentle buzzing blending with the quiet rustle of leaves. The knight awoke to this light. It spilled across his chamber, warm but not harsh. The stone beneath him retained some coolness from the night, a subtle contrast to the sun's touch. He stretched slowly, feeling the warmth settle into his limbs. Every movement was measured, deliberate, calm. He rose, letting the blankets fall naturally to the floor. The corridors were filled with the soft murmur of morning life. The smell of warm bread and porridge drifted from the kitchens. Servants moved quietly, their steps careful, precise, almost rhythmic in the soft light. Breakfast was simple and steady. Bread, cheese, and a warm drink offered nourishment, taken in calm, unhurried bites. The conversation was quiet, punctuated only by small clinks of wooden cups or the gentle scrape of utensils on plates. There was no rush, no sudden movement, only the steady rhythm of a castle coming slowly to life in the summer morning. After the meal, the knight moved outside. The courtyard was bright and warm. Sunlight glinted off the stones, highlighting the slight sheen of early morning dew. The air carried a faint, sweet scent of flowers and freshly cut grass.
A soft breeze touched the skin, gentle and steady, carrying with it the distant hum of insects and the faint calls of birds. Training began. Wooden dummies were arranged carefully. Practice swords were lifted and lowered with slow, deliberate motions. Each strike had its rhythm, each step its weight. The sounds, the thud of wood, the tap of boot on stone, the soft rustle of fabric, combined into a quiet, soothing melody. Other knights joined, moving in harmony. Their motions were calm, deliberate, almost meditative. Breathing flowed in tandem with their steps, unhurried and steady. Occasionally a bird would call from a nearby tree, or a breeze would stir the leaves. These sounds became part of the rhythm rather than a disruption. The sun grew warmer. Its light moved slowly across the courtyard. Shadows lengthened gently. The warmth seeped into the stone walls, the wooden beams, and the armor left resting nearby. The air was steady, carrying the faint hum of life, bees, birds, and the occasional whisper of a leaf against stone. After training, the knight tended to the horses. The animals were lively, sensing the warmth and the scents of summer. He brushed them slowly, checking hooves and adjusting saddles. The soft swish of hair under the brush and the gentle nicker of the horses formed a serene, steady rhythm. Each movement was deliberate, measured, and peaceful. By midday, the castle had grown quiet. The sun shone fully overhead. The stone courtyards radiated gentle heat, and the air inside the castle remained cooler. The knight returned indoors for rest, quiet tasks, and preparation of equipment. Polishing leather, inspecting weapons, or arranging clothing all became part of the gentle, slow rhythm of the day. Lunch was calm. Bread, fruit, and warm stew. The hall was filled with soft murmurs, the clinking of utensils, and the steady warmth of the hearth. Sunlight filtered through narrow windows, creating patterns on the stone floor that shifted slowly as the day moved on. In the afternoon, the knight sometimes wandered along the castle walls. The view beyond stretched green and soft. Trees swayed gently in the breeze. The river glittered in the sunlight, moving steadily, softly, without a rush. Small animals moved quietly through the undergrowth. The knight paused to observe, letting the calm of the land fill him completely. As the light shifted toward evening, the courtyard cooled slightly. Shadows grew longer. The sun lowered gradually, spilling gold and soft orange over the castle walls. Birds returned to their nests, and insects' hum softened as day turned into dusk. The knight prepared for supper slowly. The evening meal was nourishing but simple. Conversations were quiet. The warmth of the hearth, the flicker of candlelight, and the gentle scent of summer herbs created a serene, calming atmosphere. Each bite, each sip, each sound blended into a rhythm that carried the day toward rest. Afterward, he moved to his chamber. The blankets were arranged carefully. The small candle flickered, casting gentle shadows across the walls. The air carried the faint scents of summer, flowers, grass, and warm stone. Every detail merged into a soft, steady calm, wrapping around him like a gentle, unbroken rhythm. He lay down, settling fully into the bed. The warmth of the blankets, the soft flicker of light, and the distant calls of the night created a serene harmony. His breathing slowed, deepened, and evened out. The gentle hum of insects outside and the whisper of the wind through the trees became a lullaby. The night drifted into sleep. Every breath, every heartbeat, every faint sound of summer night carried him into quiet, endless calm. The castle rested. The fields rested. The trees, the river, and the distant hills rested. And the rhythm of the world continued, steady, unhurried, and peaceful. Time flowed softly. The day had ended, but the calm remained, and the night, like always, wrapped the night in gentle, serene quiet.
Late summer moved slowly into early autumn. The days were still warm, but the air carried a faint crispness, a gentle reminder of the approaching change. Sunlight was softer, drifting through the leaves that had begun to turn golden at the edges. Shadows lengthened earlier, stretching across the courtyard and the castle walls with a subtle, steady rhythm. The knight awoke to this gentle shift. His chamber was bathed in pale light, filtered through the slightly yellowed leaves outside. The stone beneath him felt cooler, softened by the warmth of the blankets. He stretched slowly, feeling each movement, aware of the calm that always filled the room in the quiet morning. Corridors were quiet, yet purposeful. Servants moved along the halls with soft, careful steps. The smell of warm bread and gentle herbs drifted from the kitchens. The occasional scrape of a chair or the faint clink of a utensil on a bowl became part of a steady, soothing rhythm. The castle was alive, but not hurried. Breakfast was simple, calm, and nourishing. Bread, soft cheese, and a warm drink. Every bite was deliberate. The knight sat quietly, listening to the subtle background of life, the low murmur of conversation, the soft shifting of bodies, the distant faint sounds of the surrounding land. After the meal, he stepped into the courtyard. The air carried a hint of chill. It moved gently through his hair and across the stone, blending with the subtle warmth of the sun. Leaves rustled softly in the light breeze. Birds called faintly, their tones calm, almost like whispers in the early morning. Training began slowly. Wooden dummies awaited, lined up in the familiar rhythm of repetition. Practice swords were lifted and lowered with careful precision. Each movement was steady, deliberate, and soothing. The sounds, the gentle thud of wood, the tap of boots on stone, the soft rustle of clothing, melded with the ambient summer to autumn calm. The knight observed small changes in nature. Shadows moved differently. The light carried golden tones, stretching longer with each passing hour. The grass was drier in patches. Leaves had begun to drift downward, landing softly on the courtyard stones. These small, almost imperceptible shifts added to the peaceful rhythm of the day. After training, the knight tended the horses. Their coats had thickened slightly for the cooler air. He brushed them carefully, checking their hooves and adjusting blankets. The soft sound of the brush against hair, the occasional nicker of the horses, and the faint tap of hooves on stone created a gentle, steady harmony. The midday meal was calm. Inside the hall, the hearth glowed softly. The smell with warm bread and slow-cooked stew mingled with the faint scent of dried herbs. Candles flickered gently along the tables. Conversation was measured, low, almost a hum against the steady backdrop of wind rustling through the trees outside. Afternoon brought slow, quiet work. The knight moved from task to task. Leather required attention. Weapons were inspected and polished. Rooms were straightened carefully, each motion deliberate, steady, and mindful. The changing season influenced everything subtly. The coolness of stone floors, the warmth of sunlit areas, the occasional draft that drifted through the corridors. As evening approached, the light shifted gently. Golden rays touched the upper walls, lengthening shadows across the courtyard. The sky carried soft tones of pink and lavender, reflecting faintly in the still waters of the moat and in the distant river.
Birds returned to their nests, and the sounds of the day quieted gradually. Supper was steady, calm, and warm. The hall glowed softly with candlelight. The food was nourishing but simple. Conversations remained hushed, each word blending with the soft crackle of the hearth and the gentle hum of life slowing down toward night. Afterward, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were arranged with care, the small candle flickering steadily on the table. The air was cool and faintly scented with the remnants of herbs, wood, and the softened warmth of stone. The world outside carried the faint whisper of evening wind brushing lightly against the castle walls and trees. He lay down slowly. Every movement was measured. Every breath deepened, evened, and relaxed. The light of the candle cast gentle, moving shadows. The faint sounds of nature outside, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, the soft murmur of wind merged into a gentle lullaby. Night arrived quietly. Stars appeared faintly above the horizon. The wind carried a soft chill, mingling with the warmth of the blankets and the hearth. The castle itself seemed to inhale and exhale with the rhythm of life, steady and slow. The night drifted into sleep. The long summer had ended, but the calm of the day, the gentle sounds of nature, the rhythm of the castle, and the steady unfolding of life continued. Time flowed softly, unhurried, and the night rested, wrapped in the steady, serene rhythm of the world, allowing the quiet evening and night to carry him gently into deep, peaceful sleep.
Autumn deepened slowly, bringing with it quiet changes to the castle and the surrounding lands. The mornings arrived wrapped in a gentle fog. Mist lingered along the fields, settling over the stone walls and the trees in soft, gray layers. The air was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of damp leaves and earth. Even the sunlight seemed subdued, filtering through the fog in muted beams, soft and diffused. The knight awoke to this calm. His chamber was cool, the blankets warm against the chill. He stretched slowly, feeling the weight and comfort of the covers. Each movement was deliberate, measured, and soothing. The fog outside softened the world into a quiet, gentle haze, as if all sharp edges had been smoothed away. The knight rose and moved quietly through the castle corridors. Stone floors were cool underfoot. The smell of damp earth and wood mingled with the faint warmth of fires that had been left burning overnight. Servants moved in soft, deliberate steps, their tasks carried out quietly, without hurry. Every small sound, the scrape of a chair, the gentle thump of a basket, the low murmur of conversation, blended seamlessly with the fog's hushed presence. Breakfast was calm and simple. Bread, cheese, and warm porridge, taken slowly, with measured bites. The flicker of candlelight complemented the soft gray morning, adding warmth and comfort to the subdued space. Outside, the fog pressed close against the windows, softening every outline and distant sound. After breakfast, the knight moved to the courtyard. The mist lay thick across the stones, curling around the bases of walls and posts. The wooden dummies of the training yard appeared as pale shadows, softened and muted. Practice swords glinted faintly in the gray light. Each movement, strike, block, step, was deliberate and gentle, echoing softly against the fog-shrouded stones. The fog carried sound differently. Footsteps and weapon strikes were muffled, softened, almost swallowed by the thick air. Even the low murmur of other knights' voices was subdued, calm, and blending with the stillness of the morning. Every sound became a gentle rhythm, unhurried and soothing.
After training, the knight tended to the horses. The animals were calm in the fog, their breath visible in faint clouds. He brushed them slowly, adjusting blankets, checking hooves, and speaking in low, soft tones. The brush moved rhythmically through the coats, producing a steady, comforting sound. The horses responded with gentle shifts and quiet nicks, moving slowly, in sync with the calm of the fog-laden morning. The midday meal was calm. The great hall glowed softly from the fire and candlelight. The food was simple, warm stew, bread and root vegetables. Each bite was taken slowly, accompanied by quiet murmurs and the gentle shuffle of feet. The fog pressed close outside, muffling distant sounds, creating a cocoon of calm inside the castle walls. Afternoon brought longer periods of quiet indoor work. Leather needed care, armor required inspection, rooms were tidied carefully. The knight moved from task to task with deliberate, slow motions. Each sound, the scrape of a brush on leather, the soft tap of tools on wood, the low hum of fire, blended into a meditative rhythm. There was no hurry, no urgency, only the slow, steady flow of daily life. The fog lingered throughout the day. Windows were streaked with condensation. The trees beyond were ghostly shapes, leaves muted in tone. The distant hills disappeared in gray haze. Even the wind moved slower, curling through the castle grounds in gentle eddies. Every step, every sound, every breath inside the castle was magnified by the quiet of the autumn air, creating a sense of profound calm. As evening approached, shadows stretched long and soft. The fire in the great hall burned steadily. Candlelight flickered gently across the stone walls. The meal was calm, taken with care. The knight and the others moved softly, in harmony with the muted world outside. Conversations were hushed. Sounds were gentle. Every movement, every sound, every breath was part of the continuous rhythm of the day. After supper, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn close. A small candle flickered on the table, casting soft, shifting shadows across the walls. The air carried the faint scent of damp stone, wood, and herbs. The castle was quiet, resting in the gentle rhythm of long autumn days. He lay down slowly. The blankets wrapped him in warmth. The faint light of the candle flickered across the room. Outside, the fog thickened, moving in soft, slow currents. Every sound, the low drip of moisture from the roof, the distant rustle of leaves, the gentle shifting of stone, blended into a continuous, calming lullaby. The night's breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. The fog outside, the warmth inside, the steady flicker of light, and the soft, muted sounds of the castle merged into one continuous, soothing rhythm. Time flowed slowly, endlessly, gently, and the night drifted into sleep. The castle rested. The fog lay across the land like a soft blanket. Every shadow, every stone, every quiet movement was part of the calm, peaceful flow of life. The day faded into night, unhurried, soft, and serene, carrying the night into the depths of quiet, uninterrupted rest.
Late autumn moved quietly into early winter. The trees had shed most of their leaves, leaving branches bare and etched against the pale sky. The air was colder now, crisp and clean, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The mornings arrived with a soft chill, brushing against the skin and slowing movements to a careful, deliberate pace. The knight awoke to this chill. His chamber felt cool,
though the blankets offered warmth and comfort. He stretched slowly, each motion deliberate, feeling the cool stone beneath his feet and the soft warmth of his covers. The light from the low winter sun filtered through narrow windows, muted and pale, spreading gently across the walls and floor. The corridors were quiet and still. Servants moved in soft, careful steps, carrying wood, tending fires, and preparing for the long day ahead. Every sound, the low creak of timber, the faint scrape of tools, the quiet murmur of voices, blended seamlessly with the stillness of early winter mornings. Breakfast was simple and slow. Bread, porridge, and warm drinks, taken with deliberate care. Candles flickered softly, complementing the faint glow of the early sun. Outside, the world was muted and gray, softened by frost that clung lightly to the stone and the ground. Every bite, every sip was steady and unhurried, part of the calm rhythm of the day. After breakfast, the knight moved to his indoor routines. The courtyard was cold, sometimes slick with frost. The outdoor training yard was empty, covered in a thin, delicate sheen of ice in some places. Wooden dummies were silent, motionless. Armor and weapons were tended carefully indoors. Each stroke of the brush, each drop of oil, each careful motion forming a meditative rhythm. He paused often by the windows. The landscape beyond was soft, gray, and muted. Trees stood bare, the distant hills shrouded in mist. Every small movement in the world, a bird lifting from a branch, a squirrel scurrying through the underbrush, was noticeable in the quiet of winter and calming in its gentle, predictable rhythm. Midday arrived slowly. The great hall glowed warmly, the hearth roaring gently, filling the space with steady, comforting heat. The meal was nourishing but simple: stew, bread, and roasted root vegetables. The smell of fire, cooked food, and faint wood smoke wrapped the hall in a quiet, enveloping calm. Conversation was low, deliberate, almost whisper-like. Every sound blended with the warmth and rhythm of the castle. After the meal, the knight attended to smaller tasks. Leather needed oiling, weapons required inspection, rooms were tidied with care. Every motion was measured, deliberate, and soothing. The cool air outside pressed gently against the windows, while inside, the warmth of fires and steady candlelight created a cocoon of comfort and peace. As afternoon faded into evening, the light grew softer. Golden and pale tones filled the castle, reflecting off stone walls and wooden beams. Shadows stretched slowly across floors, moving imperceptibly as the sun dipped lower. The distant hills were veiled in mist, and the wind whispered softly through the trees. The courtyard stones, cold and solid, glimmered faintly with frost and moisture. Supper was calm. The meal was warm and steady. The fire glowed gently, casting flickering light across the hall. Each bite, each sip was deliberate and slow. Conversations were soft, measured, and comforting. The world outside the walls continued in quiet rhythm, muted by the chill of early winter. Afterward, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn close. A small candle flickered steadily on the table. The air smelt faintly of wood, stone, and herbs, carrying the gentle calm of long winter evenings. Every sound, the low crackle of the fire, the faint rustle of a curtain, the distant sigh of wind, melded into a slow, peaceful rhythm. He lay down. The warmth of the blankets, the gentle flicker of candlelight, and the faint, muted sounds outside merged into a singular, soothing calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. The stone beneath him was firm, but softened by layers of blankets, and the chill of winter was held at bay by the steady warmth surrounding him. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, and quiet corridors all absorbed the stillness of the season. The frost lay lightly across the courtyard, the bare trees, and the distant hills. Every shadow, every sound, every faint movement carried a soft, continuous rhythm, unbroken and calm. The night drifted into sleep. There was no abrupt moment, no sudden shift, only a gentle release, a slow settling into rest. The fire crackled softly, the wind whispered faintly through the walls, and the world carried on in quiet, unhurried rhythm. Time flowed softly, endlessly, calmly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene, gentle rhythm of life, winter, and the slow, quiet world around him.
Winter settled fully over the land. Snow fell slowly, silently, covering the castle, courtyard, and fields beyond in a soft white blanket. Each flake drifted gently, melting against warm stone or settling lightly on frozen earth. The world outside was muted, quiet, and still, as if time itself had slowed to a gentle, unhurried pace. The night awoke in the cold of early morning. The blankets were thick and warm, soft against the chill of the room. Pale light filtered through snow-covered windows, reflecting faintly off the frost on the glass. Every movement was slow, deliberate, measured. Stretching, rising, and settling into the rhythm of the day became a quiet meditation. The corridors echoed softly. Wood creaked faintly as servants moved carefully. The smell of burning wood from the hearths mingled with the faint scent of herbs drying indoors. Their footsteps were quiet, deliberate, almost absorbed by the soft hush of the snow outside. Every sound, every motion contributed to the steady rhythm of life within the walls. Breakfast was warm, slow, and comforting. Porridge, bread, and a small piece of cheese offered gentle sustenance. The flames of the hearth flickered steadily, casting long, soft shadows across the stone floor. Outside, snow continued to fall, muffling distant sounds and creating a cocoon of calm. Each bite and sip was taken slowly, each movement deliberate, forming a quiet rhythm that matched the slow world beyond the castle walls. Afterward, the night tended to indoor tasks. Wood needed stacking, armor required careful inspection, weapons were cleaned, oiled, and set aside. Leather was brushed and conditioned with deliberate, slow motions. Each movement, each sound, each small task was absorbed into the quiet of the snow-filled day, forming a continuous, peaceful rhythm. The courtyard was still under snow. Footsteps sank lightly into the soft blanket of white. The dummies for training were faint shapes, softened by the layer of frost and snow. Even the horses were quiet, sheltered in the stables, their breath forming faint clouds in the cold air. Every movement in the castle and courtyard was deliberate, slow, and measured, in harmony with the winter's hush. Midday brought quiet warmth indoors. The great hall glowed from the steady fire, offering light and gentle heat. The meal was simple and nourishing. Stew, bread, and roasted root vegetables filled the air with soft, comforting smells. Conversation was low, muted, measured. Outside, the snow drifted slowly, muffling the sounds of the land, holding everything in a soft, silent embrace. Afterward, the night tended to deliberate activities. The knight polished armor and weapons with steady hands. He tended leather, checking seams and brushing dust away. Small repairs were made slowly and carefully. The soft creak of leather, the faint scrape of metal, and the gentle thump of tools became a meditative rhythm, unbroken and soothing. As the sun lowered, the light turned pale and soft. Shadows stretched long across the walls. Snow outside shimmered faintly in the dim light.
the world was muffled, calm and steady. Trees were still, the distant hills faded into soft white shapes, and the courtyard remained quiet beneath its thick snow covering. Supper was calm and warm. The great hall glowed softly from the hearth and candles. Food was simple yet nourishing. Every bite and sip was taken slowly. The quiet conversations were measured and gentle, blending with the soft crackle of fire and the muted rhythm of snow falling outside. After the meal, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were arranged with care. The small candle flickered steadily, casting dancing shadows across the stone walls. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, and herbs warmed by the fire. Every sound, the distant wind, the soft shifting of snow, the occasional creak of timber, formed a continuous, gentle lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the faint flicker of candlelight, and the soft, muffled sounds of winter outside merged into a single, continuous calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. The stone beneath him was firm, but softened by layers of blankets, and the cold of winter was held at bay by the steady warmth surrounding him. The castle rested around him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, quiet corridors, and softly falling snow all absorbed the stillness of winter. Every shadow, every faint sound, every small movement carried a soft, continuous rhythm, unhurried and calming. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt moment, no sudden shift, only a gentle release, a slow settling into rest. The crackle of the hearth, the whisper of wind, the soft drift of snow, all combined into a gentle, continuous lullaby. Time flowed softly, endlessly, and calmly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of life, snow, and the quiet world around him.
The day wore on slowly, but today the weather had decided to change. A quiet rain had begun to fall. At first, it was only a few scattered drops, soft and almost unnoticed, as they touched the stone courtyard. Then more joined in, each one landing with a gentle pat, a muted sound that blended with the rhythm of the castle walls. The air felt heavier, cooler, carrying the faint scent of wet earth. Mist rose from the ground in thin, quiet waves, curling softly around the base of the walls. The courtyard, once bright and clear, now shimmered with the reflection of the damp stones. The knight remained indoors. The armor stayed on its rack, untouched, while the wooden floor beneath him creaked faintly under his movement. The quiet dripping from the roof above, the soft tapping of rain against narrow windows, and the distant rustle of leaves beyond the walls created a serene melody, steady and calming. He moved slowly through the corridors. Every step was deliberate. The stone felt cool beneath his feet, solid and grounding. Torches along the walls flickered gently, casting long shadows that swayed in rhythm with the tiny drafts of air stirred by the rain. The light here was soft, warm, and comforting. The great hall awaited for the midday meal. Candles had been lit to supplement the gray light filtering through the windows. A fire burned steadily in the hearth, its warmth offering quiet contrast to the cool, damp air outside. The tables, long and plain, were prepared with bowls and simple wooden cups. The aroma of bread and porridge rose gently, mingling with the faint scent of smoke from the fire. The knight took his place. Others had gathered quietly, moving without hurry. Their voices, low and measured, blended seamlessly with the soft patter of rain. There was no rush, no clatter, no demand. Each bite of bread, each sip of warm broth was taken with patience and calm. After the meal, the knight turned to indoor duties. The rain outside kept him from the courtyard or the training yard.
Instead, he attended to smaller, quieter tasks. A sword needed oiling. Its metal surface was polished slowly, each movement careful, methodical. A set of leather straps required attention. He bent over them with measured precision, the soft sound of leather and thread filling the room. Sometimes he paused to watch the rain. Through narrow windows, water ran in thin lines down the glass. The fields beyond the walls were blurred and softened by the gray veil of precipitation. Trees bent slightly under the weight of the falling droplets. The sound was steady, a gentle cadence, unbroken, like a lullaby of the world itself. The hours passed without notice. Time did not demand recognition. It flowed quietly, marked only by the gradual movement of shadows across the stone floor and the slow dimming of the day outside. Later, the night tended to the horses indoors. The animals were restless with the rain outside. Their hooves tapped softly against the stall floors, a rhythmic echo in the calm hallways of the stable. He brushed them with gentle strokes, spoke to them in low tones, adjusting their blankets to keep them warm and dry. The simple repetition of care became a meditation, each motion soft and continuous. The rain intensified briefly. It drummed lightly on the roof above, and the mist beyond the walls thickened into near white veils. Yet the castle remained a haven of calm. Every stone, every timber, every flickering flame seemed to absorb the rain's quiet energy and transform it into serenity. By late afternoon, the rain had softened to a steady drizzle. The knight returned to his chamber, carrying nothing but a quiet sense of the day's passage. The stone floor felt slightly damp under his bare feet, but not unpleasant. The room welcomed him with the warm embrace of the hearth, still glowing softly from the earlier fire. He sat briefly by the window. The world outside shimmered with rain, muted colors and softened edges. The horizon was blurred. Trees seemed almost painted into the mist. The knight's gaze drifted across it, not searching for anything, not expecting any change, only observing, only resting. Evening approached. The fire was stoked again, and candles were lit to maintain a soft, steady glow. The meal would be simple, as it always was on such days. Everyone moved quietly, their actions precise, rhythmic, calm. No rush, no fuss, just the slow, continuous flow of life inside the castle walls. The knight's body felt right, without armor, without the sun's heat, without the day's exertions. There was only the gentle awareness of presence. The room, the castle, the rain, the soft flicker of flames, all converged into a single calming rhythm. As night deepened, the rain finally lessened. It left behind a moist, earthy scent, a softened world, and quiet echoes of water dripping from the roof and walls. The castle seemed to sigh in relief, carrying the weight of the day gently into rest. The knight prepared for sleep. He followed the same slow routine, washing hands, arranging blankets, settling into the familiar bed. The room felt slightly cooler, the smell of wet stone and wood still present, but comforting. The rhythmic dripping of the final rain against the window became a lullaby, steady and soft. Lying down, he allowed his body to relax completely. The breath deepened and evened out. Every muscle softened. The quiet sounds of the castle, the rain's residual whisper, and the steady flicker of the hearth combined into a singular sense of peace. Outside, the night fully arrived. The stars were hidden behind the lingering clouds. The wind was gentle. The world seemed paused, waiting, resting, calm and still. And within this quiet, the night drifted into sleep. Each breath, each pulse, each heartbeat, a soft continuation of the world's gentle rhythm. The day, the rain, the indoor calm, all merged into a singular, endless serenity, carrying him slowly into the quiet, deep night.
Midwinter stretched its long nights over the castle and the surrounding land. The snow lay deep now, muffling every sound and softening every edge. The courtyard was a smooth white expanse. The distant hills faded into soft gray silhouettes. The air was cold, crisp, and still, carrying the faint scent of frozen earth and smoke from distant fires. Each flake that fell drifted slowly, as if time itself had slowed to a gentle, deliberate pace. The knight awoke to the quiet. His chamber was still and cool, the blankets thick and comforting. The pale winter light filtered softly through frost-covered windows, scattering delicate patterns across the stone floor. He stretched slowly, feeling the warmth of the blankets and the firm stone beneath, each movement deliberate and calming. The chill of midwinter pressed gently against the room, but the fire in the hearth offered a steady, comforting warmth. The corridors were hushed and still. Servants moved with care, their footsteps slow and measured. The scrape of a basket, the low hum of conversation, and the soft crackle of firewood blended into the quiet rhythm of the day. Outside, the snow drifted silently, pressing against the walls and windows, muffling distant sounds, creating a sense of calm and stillness. Breakfast was warm and unhurried. Thick porridge, fresh bread, and a little cheese were taken slowly. The fire in the hearth flickered softly, casting gentle light over the hall. The knight ate carefully, each bite a steady rhythm in the slow, deliberate pace of the day. Outside, the snowflakes continued to drift lazily to the ground, silent and soothing. After breakfast, he moved to quiet tasks indoors. Armor was polished with gentle, methodical strokes. Weapons were inspected and oiled. Leather was brushed and conditioned. Each movement, each sound, the scrape of metal, the soft thump of tools, the quiet shifting of leather, formed a calm, meditative cadence. The muffled snow outside made every sound inside more distinct, yet more soothing, like a lullaby of small, steady motions. The horses were warm and quiet in their stables. Their soft breathing rose in small clouds in the cold air. The knight brushed their coats slowly, checked hooves carefully, and adjusted blankets with steady, deliberate motions. The low nicker of the animals, the soft swish of the brush, and the faint scrape of boots on stone blended into the quiet rhythm of midwinter. Midday arrived slowly. The great hall glowed from the hearth, offering warmth and steady light. The meal was simple: thick stew, roasted root vegetables, and warm bread. Conversations were low and measured, almost a hum, blending with the steady crackle of firewood and the faint whisper of wind outside. The snow outside pressed closer with every passing hour, muffling all distant noise, creating a cocoon of calm within the castle. Afternoon passed with long, quiet routines. The knight moved deliberately from one task to another. Leather was polished, garments arranged, small repairs completed with slow care. The muted daylight filtered through frost-covered windows, soft and gray. Every action, every sound, every breath was absorbed into the gentle rhythm of life inside the castle. As evening approached, shadows grew long and soft. Candlelight flickered steadily along the walls. The
The fire glowed warmly, casting moving shadows across the stone floor. The snow drifted gently outside, deep and muffled, covering every surface in calm, white quiet. Every step, every movement, every sound became part of a steady, unhurried rhythm. Supper was simple and warm. The meal was nourishing: stew, bread, and roasted root vegetables. Conversation was quiet, slow, and steady. The fire crackled softly. Candlelight flickered. Every motion, every sound, every breath flowed gently into the rhythm of the long winter evening. Afterward, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn snugly around him. The candle flickered steadily, casting gentle, moving shadows. The room smelled faintly of wood, stone, and herbs warmed by the fire. Outside, the wind whispered softly through the snow-covered walls and frozen trees. Every sound, every shadow, every subtle movement merged into a continuous, gentle lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the flickering light, and the soft, muffled sounds of snow outside created a cocoon of calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every breath became part of the steady, soothing rhythm surrounding him. The castle rested around him. Stone walls, timber beams, quiet corridors, and snow-laden grounds absorbed the stillness of midwinter. Every shadow, every faint sound, every small movement carried a soft, continuous rhythm, unhurried and peaceful. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle settling into rest. The soft crackle of the hearth, the steady flicker of candlelight, and the hushed, snowy world outside merged into one continuous, calming lullaby. Time flowed softly, endlessly, and gently, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of winter, snow, and the quiet world around him.
The deepest winter settled fully over the land. The snow was thick and soft, a smooth white blanket that stretched over the courtyard, the fields, and the distant hills. Every sound outside was muffled. The trees stood bare, their branches heavy with snow. The wind moved slowly, brushing softly across the frozen landscape, carrying a crisp, quiet scent of ice and wood smoke. The knight awoke to the long, cold morning. His chamber was cool, but the blankets offered warmth and comfort. Pale winter light filtered through frost-covered windows, scattering delicate patterns across the stone floor. Each stretch and movement was deliberate, slow, and soothing. The chill outside pressed gently against the room, but inside the fire's warmth enveloped him in calm. The corridors were quiet and hushed. Servants moved softly, carrying wood and tending fires. Their steps were careful, measured, blending with the low hum of the castle. Any faint scrape of a basket or the soft clink of metal echoed gently, softened by the thick snow outside. Every sound, every motion, every breath became part of the steady rhythm of life within the walls. Breakfast was warm, slow, and deliberate. Thick porridge, fresh bread, and a bit of cheese offered gentle nourishment. The fire flickered softly in the hearth, casting long, moving shadows across the stone walls. Outside, snow continued to fall silently, blanketing the world in muffled quiet.
Each bite and sip was slow, measured, and soothing, forming a rhythm that carried into the rest of the day. After breakfast, the knight attended to quiet indoor tasks. Armor was polished with careful, steady strokes. Weapons were inspected and oiled. Leather was brushed and conditioned. Each sound, the scrape of metal, the soft tap of a brush, the low hum of fire, blended into the muted world outside. Every movement, every sound, every breath became part of the calm, meditative rhythm of deep winter. The horses were quiet and warm in the stables. Their soft breath rose in small clouds in the cold air. The knight brushed their coats, checked hooves, and adjusted blankets with slow, deliberate motions. The low nicker of the animals, the faint swish of the brush, and the gentle tap of boots on stone became a soothing cadence, steady and unhurried. Midday passed with gentle warmth indoors. The great hall glowed from the steady fire. Food was simple but nourishing, thick stew, root vegetables, and warm bread. Conversation was measured and quiet. The snow outside absorbed distant sounds, creating a cocoon of calm within the castle walls. Every bite, every sip, every small motion flowed into the quiet rhythm of life. Afternoon continued with long, slow routines. The knight polished leather, inspected garments, arranged armor carefully. The muted winter daylight filtered through frost-covered windows, soft and gray. Every movement, every sound, every breath was absorbed into the gentle rhythm of life, the slow cadence of deep winter. As evening approached, shadows lengthened across the stone floor. Candlelight flickered steadily, casting warm, gentle shapes across the walls. The fire glowed steadily, radiating warmth. Outside, snow drifted slowly, deep and silent, muffling every distant sound. The world became calm, still and steady. Supper was simple and warm. The meal was nourishing, taken slowly. Conversation was soft, quiet, and deliberate. The fire crackled gently, candlelight flickered. Every sound, every movement, every breath blended into the continuous, unhurried rhythm of deep winter evenings. After supper, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn snugly around him. The candle flickered softly, casting gentle shadows. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, and herbs warmed by the fire. Every sound, the faint whistle of wind outside, the soft shifting of snow, the crackle of the hearth, merged into a continuous, calming lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the soft candlelight, and the muffled silence outside created a cocoon of calm. His breathing slowed, deepened, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every movement became part of the steady rhythm surrounding him. The castle rested around him. Stone walls, timber beams, quiet corridors, and snow-laden grounds absorbed the stillness of deep winter. Every shadow, every faint sound, every subtle movement carried a soft, continuous rhythm, unhurried and serene. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle settling into rest. The crackle of the fire, the flicker of candlelight, and the hushed, snowy world outside merged into one continuous, soothing lullaby. Time flowed softly, endlessly, and gently, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of winter, snow, and the quiet, gentle world around him. The deepest nights of winter stretched long over the castle. Outside, the snow lay thick and undisturbed. Each surface, from the courtyard stones to the distant hills, was softened into a smooth, white silence. The wind whispered faintly, brushing lightly against the castle walls, and carried the crisp scent of frozen earth and wood smoke. Every sound outside was muffled, every shape softened, creating a world of gentle quiet. The knight awoke slowly, feeling the stillness of the night. His blankets were thick and warm. The stone beneath his feet was cold but steady. Pale moonlight filtered through frost-covered windows, casting delicate, shimmering patterns across the chamber floor. Each stretch and movement was slow, deliberate, and calming, a soft preparation for the day ahead. The corridors were hushed and gentle. Servants moved carefully, carrying wood and tending fires. The faint scrape of a basket, the soft thump of boots, the low murmur of voices, all blended seamlessly with the quiet rhythm of winter nights. Outside, snow drifted softly, muffling the world, holding it in a calm, steady embrace. Breakfast was simple, warm, and slow. Thick porridge, fresh bread, and a little cheese nourished the body gently. The hearth flickered steadily, casting soft, dancing shadows across the stone floor. Outside, snowflakes drifted in silent motion, melting softly on the cold window panes. Each bite, each sip was taken slowly, deliberately, forming part of the steady, soothing rhythm of the winter morning. After breakfast, the knight moved to quiet indoor tasks. Leather was brushed and conditioned. Armor was polished slowly, each stroke careful and precise. Weapons were inspected, oiled, and set aside. The faint scrape of tools, the low thump of leather, and the gentle hum of the hearth blended into a meditative cadence. Every movement became part of the calm, steady flow of life in the castle. The horses were quiet and warm in the stables. Their soft breaths rose in delicate clouds. The knight brushed their coats slowly, checked hooves carefully, and adjusted blankets with deliberate care. The low nicker of the animals, the soft swish of brushes, and the faint tap of boots on stone blended into the hushed, steady rhythm of deep winter. Midday passed gently indoors. The great hall glowed from the fire's steady warmth. The meal was simple and nourishing, thick stew, roasted vegetables, and warm bread. Conversation was hushed, deliberate, measured. The snow outside absorbed all distant noise, creating a cocoon of calm within the castle walls. Every bite, every sip, every motion flowed into the slow, unhurried rhythm of life. Afternoon unfolded in long, gentle routines. The knight moved slowly from task to task, polishing leather, arranging garments, inspecting armor carefully. The pale, muted winter light filtered softly through frost-covered windows. Each movement, each sound, each breath blended seamlessly into the gentle rhythm of life, slow and meditative. As evening drew near, shadows lengthened further across the stone floor. Candlelight flickered steadily, casting warm, dancing shapes across the walls. The fire glowed gently, radiating calm warmth. Snow continued to fall outside, soft and silent, muffling the distant world. Every movement, every sound, every breath became part of the steady, unhurried rhythm of winter evenings. Afterward, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn snugly around him. A single candle flickered gently, casting moving shadows across the stone walls. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, and herbs warmed by the fire. Outside, the wind whispered softly through the snow-laden walls and trees. Every sound, every shadow, every subtle movement formed a continuous, gentle lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the soft flicker of candlelight, and the muffled, snowy silence outside created a cocoon of calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every motion became part of the steady rhythm of rest surrounding him. The castle rested alongside him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, quiet corridors, and snow-covered grounds absorbed the stillness of deep winter. Every shadow, every faint sound, every subtle movement carried a soft, continuous, unhurried rhythm. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt moment, no sudden shift, only a gentle settling into rest. The fire crackled softly, the candlelight flickered steadily, and the hushed, snowy world outside merged into one continuous, calming lullaby. Time flowed slowly, endlessly, and softly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of winter, snow, and the quiet, gentle world around him.
The final stretch of winter lingered quietly over the land. Snow remained thick across the courtyard and fields, yet the world began to show subtle signs of change. The sun rose a little higher, spilling pale, gentle light over the frosted landscape. The cold still pressed softly against the stone walls, but each day brought a faint promise of thaw. The wind carried the quiet scent of snow, ice, and wood smoke, mingled with a faint hint of earth waiting beneath the frost. The knight awoke slowly, as always. His chamber was still cool, but the blankets offered steady warmth. The pale winter light filtered through frost-covered windows, scattering soft patterns across the floor. Every stretch and movement was deliberate, slow, and soothing. The chill pressed gently against him, but the fire beside his bed radiated calm warmth, wrapping the room in comfort. The corridors were quiet. Servants moved carefully, carrying firewood and tending hearths. The faint scrape of tools, the soft tap of boots, and low murmurs blended with the hushed rhythm of the castle. Outside, snow lay thick and undisturbed, muffling every distant sound. Even the wind moved slower, brushing softly against the walls, creating a quiet, steady world. Breakfast was warm, simple, and slow. Thick porridge, bread, and a small portion of cheese offered gentle nourishment. The fire flickered softly in the hearth, casting long, dancing shadows across the stone walls. Outside, pale sunlight touched the snowy ground, reflecting faintly through frost-covered windows. Each bite and sip was deliberate, forming part of the unhurried rhythm of life. After breakfast, the knight focused on quiet indoor tasks. Armor was polished carefully, weapons inspected and oiled, and leather brushed and conditioned. Every movement, every sound, the scrape of metal, the soft tap of tools, the low hum of the fire blended into the meditative cadence of winter life. The muffled world outside made each sound inside feel intimate, quiet, and steady. The horses remained warm and quiet in the stables. Their gentle breaths rose in faint clouds. The knight brushed their coats slowly, checked hooves, and adjusted blankets with deliberate, calming motions. The soft nicker of the animals, the gentle swish of the brush, and the faint tap of boots on stone created a rhythm as steady and slow as the snow outside. Midday passed in quiet warmth indoors.
The great hall glowed from the steady fire. Food was simple but nourishing: thick stew, roasted vegetables, and warm bread. Conversation was hushed, measured, deliberate. The snow absorbed all distant noise, creating a serene cocoon within the castle walls. Each bite, each sip, each motion flowed into the slow, unhurried rhythm of life. Afternoon moved gently. The night tended to small indoor tasks: polishing leather, arranging garments, inspecting armor. The muted winter light filtered softly through frost-covered windows, gray and calm. Each movement, each sound, each breath blended seamlessly into the quiet rhythm of life, a meditative cadence of deep winter. As evening approached, shadows stretched long and soft across the stone floor. Candlelight flickered steadily along the walls. The fire glowed warmly, casting gentle, moving shadows. Outside, snow continued to fall slowly, soft and muffled, wrapping the world in quiet white. Every step, every motion, every sound became part of the gentle, unhurried rhythm of the evening. Supper was calm, warm, and deliberate. The meal nourished slowly: stew, bread, roasted root vegetables. Conversation was soft, deliberate, low. The fire crackled quietly. Candlelight flickered steadily. Every sound, every motion, every breath merged with the long, steady rhythm of the evening. After supper, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn snugly around him. A single candle flickered gently, casting soft shadows across the stone walls. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, and herbs warmed by the fire. Every sound, the distant whisper of wind, the soft shifting of snow, and the low crackle of the hearth merged into a continuous, calming lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the soft candlelight, and the muffled, snowy quiet outside created a cocoon of calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every subtle movement became part of the steady, soothing rhythm surrounding him. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, quiet corridors, and snow-covered grounds absorbed the stillness of the waning winter. Every shadow, every faint sound, every small movement carried a soft, continuous rhythm, unhurried and gentle. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle settling into rest. The crackle of the fire, the flicker of candlelight, and the hushed, snowy world outside merged into one continuous, soft lullaby. Time flowed gently, endlessly, and quietly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of winter, snow, and the quiet world around him.
The final stretch of winter lingered quietly over the land. Snow remained thick across the courtyard and fields, yet the world began to show subtle signs of change. The sun rose a little higher, spilling pale, gentle light over the frosted landscape. The cold still pressed softly against the stone walls, but each day brought a faint promise of thaw. The wind carried the quiet scent of snow, ice, and wood smoke, mingled with a faint hint of earth waiting beneath the frost. The knight awoke slowly, as always. His chamber was still cool, but the blankets offered steady warmth. The pale winter light filtered through frost-covered windows, scattering soft patterns across the floor. Every stretch and movement was deliberate, slow, and soothing. The chill pressed gently against him, but the fire beside his bed radiated calm warmth, wrapping the room in comfort. The corridors were quiet. Servants moved carefully, carrying firewood and tending hearths.
The faint scrape of tools, the soft tap of boots, and low murmurs blended with the hushed rhythm of the castle. Outside, snow lay thick and undisturbed, muffling every distant sound. Even the wind moved slower, brushing softly against the walls, creating a quiet, steady world. Breakfast was warm, simple, and slow. Thick porridge, bread, and a small portion of cheese offered gentle nourishment. The fire flickered softly in the hearth, casting long, dancing shadows across the stone walls. Outside, pale sunlight touched the snowy ground, reflecting faintly through frost-covered windows. Each bite and sip was deliberate, forming part of the unhurried rhythm of life. After breakfast, the night focused on quiet indoor tasks. Armor was polished carefully, weapons inspected and oiled, and leather brushed and conditioned. Every movement, every sound, the scrape of metal, the soft tap of tools, the low hum of the fire, blended into the meditative cadence of winter life. The muffled world outside made each sound inside feel intimate, quiet, and steady. The horses remained warm and quiet in the stables. Their gentle breaths rose in faint clouds. The night brushed their coats slowly, checked hooves, and adjusted blankets with deliberate, calming motions. The soft nicker of the animals, the gentle swish of the brush, and the faint tap of boots on stone created a rhythm as steady and slow as the snow outside. Midday passed in quiet warmth indoors. The great hall glowed from the steady fire. Food was simple but nourishing: thick stew, roasted vegetables, and warm bread. Conversation was hushed, measured, deliberate. The snow absorbed all distant noise, creating a serene cocoon within the castle walls. Each bite, each sip, each motion flowed into the slow, unhurried rhythm of life. Afternoon moved gently. The night tended to small indoor tasks: polishing leather, arranging garments, inspecting armor. The muted winter light filtered softly through frost-covered windows, gray and calm. Each movement, each sound, each breath blended seamlessly into the quiet rhythm of life, a meditative cadence of deep winter. As evening approached, shadows stretched long and soft across the stone floor. Candlelight flickered steadily along the walls. The fire glowed warmly, casting gentle, moving shadows. Outside, snow continued to fall slowly, soft and muffled, wrapping the world in quiet white. Every step, every motion, every sound became part of the gentle, unhurried rhythm of the evening. Supper was calm, warm, and deliberate. The meal nourished slowly: stew, bread, roasted root vegetables. Conversation was soft, deliberate, low. The fire crackled quietly. Candlelight flickered steadily. Every sound, every motion, every breath merged with the long, steady rhythm of the evening. After supper, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn snugly around him. A single candle flickered gently, casting soft shadows across the stone walls. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, and herbs warmed by the fire. Every sound, the distant whisper of wind, the soft shifting of snow, the low crackle of the hearth, merged into a continuous, calming lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the soft candlelight, and the muffled, snowy quiet outside created a cocoon of calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every subtle movement became part of the steady, soothing rhythm surrounding him. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, quiet corridors and snow-covered grounds absorbed the stillness of the waning winter. Every shadow, every faint sound, every small movement carried a soft, continuous rhythm, unhurried and gentle. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle settling into rest. The crackle of the fire, the flicker of candlelight, and the hushed, snowy world outside merged into one continuous, soft lullaby. Time flowed gently, endlessly, and quietly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of winter, snow, and the quiet world around him.
Early signs of spring began to touch the land. The snow, once thick and unbroken, now lay in soft patches, melting slowly in the gentle sun. Dark earth appeared along the edges of the courtyard and fields, moist and waiting for new life. The wind carried a softer, warmer scent, a mix of melting snow, damp soil, and faint green hints of the season to come. The sun lingered a little longer in the sky, casting pale, golden light over the stone walls of the castle and distant hills. The knight awoke slowly, as always. His blankets were warm and comforting. The air in the chamber was still cool, but softened by the lengthening sunlight filtering through frost-free windows. Every stretch, every small motion was deliberate, slow, and soothing. The chill pressed lightly against him, but the steady warmth of the fire beside the bed and the faint sounds of the slowly waking castle made him feel safe and calm. The corridors were hushed and gentle. Servants moved carefully, tending fires and carrying water. Their footsteps were soft and measured. The faint scrape of tools, the low hum of conversation, and the gentle crackle of the hearth blended into the quiet rhythm of castle life. Outside, the melting snow began to drip from the eaves, forming small, soft puddles that reflected pale sunlight. Every movement, every sound, every breath became part of the calm, steady pace of life. Breakfast was warm and unhurried. Porridge, bread, and cheese nourished slowly. The fire flickered steadily, casting gentle shadows across the stone floor. Sunlight reflected softly on wet patches of courtyard and glimmering remnants of snow. Each bite and each sip was deliberate, forming part of the quiet rhythm of the slowly warming day. After breakfast, the knight tended to quiet indoor tasks. Leather was brushed and conditioned, armor polished with slow, steady strokes, and weapons inspected and oiled. The faint tap of brushes, the scrape of metal, and the gentle hum of the fire merged into a meditative cadence. Outside, the thaw brought soft trickles of water from eaves and melting snow, their gentle patter blending seamlessly with the calm rhythm of castle life. The horses sensed the approaching spring. Their breath rose in faint clouds of warmth. The knight brushed their coats carefully, checked hooves, and adjusted blankets. The low nicker of the animals, the soft swish of brushes, and the gentle tap of boots on stone created a soothing cadence that echoed the slow change of season. Small patches of exposed earth allowed the animals to step softly on moist ground, adding gentle texture to the quiet day. Midday passed slowly and comfortably indoors. The great hall glowed with warmth from the fire. The meal was simple but nourishing: thick stew, roasted root vegetables, and warm bread. Conversation was soft, deliberate, and low. Outside, small rivulets ran through melting snow, reflecting the pale sunlight. The courtyard was soft with patches of thawed ground. Every bite, every sip, every small motion flowed into the gentle, calming rhythm of life. Afternoon unfolded quietly. The knight tended indoor tasks, polishing leather, arranging garments, inspecting armor.
The muted daylight, now slightly warmer and longer, filtered softly through the windows, casting gentle patterns on the stone floors. Birds began to return, their distant calls soft and intermittent, blending with the faint trickle of melting snow. Each movement, each sound, each breath merged into the slow, meditative rhythm of early spring. As evening approached, shadows stretched long and gentle across the floor. Candlelight flickered steadily along the walls. The fire glowed warmly, radiating soft heat. Outside, the snow continued to melt in patches, forming small streams along the courtyard and hillsides. The wind carried a faint scent of earth and growing grass. Every movement, every sound, every breath became part of the calm, steady rhythm of the evening. Supper was calm, warm, and deliberate. The meal nourished the body slowly, stew, bread, and roasted vegetables. Conversation was soft, low, and gentle. The fire crackled quietly. Candlelight flickered steadily. Every sound, every motion, every breath blended into the continuous rhythm of the evening, extended and serene. After supper, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were arranged snugly around him. A single candle flickered softly, casting moving shadows across the walls. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, and herbs warmed by the fire. Outside, water trickled gently from melting snow. The distant calls of returning birds added a soft texture to the quiet day. Every movement, every sound, every shadow merged into a gentle, continuous lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the flickering candlelight, and the quiet signs of spring outside created a cocoon of calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every movement became part of the steady, soothing rhythm surrounding him. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, quiet corridors, and the melting snow outside absorbed the stillness of early spring. Every shadow, every faint sound, every small movement carried a soft, continuous, unhurried rhythm. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle settling into rest. The fire crackled softly, the candlelight flickered steadily, and the quiet, thawing world outside merged into one continuous, soft lullaby. Time flowed gently, endlessly, and quietly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of early spring, the soft melting snow, and the quiet world around him.
Spring arrived slowly, gently, without suddenness. The snow had mostly melted, leaving soft patches of white along the edges of the courtyard and hillsides. Streams of clear water traced delicate paths along the thawing ground, glinting softly in the pale sun. The air carried the gentle scent of wet earth, new growth, and faint traces of wood smoke from hearths that still burned warmly. Trees began to bud, their small green shoots promising life yet to unfold. The world was quiet, gentle, and full of soft, steady rhythm. The night awoke slowly, wrapped in the warmth of blankets. The morning air was cool but softened by sunlight streaming through clear windows. Each stretch, each turn, each small movement was deliberate, slow, and soothing. The fire beside the bed radiated steady warmth. The soft, distant murmur of trickling water from melting snow outside created a calm background, a natural rhythm that moved seamlessly with the quiet castle sounds. The corridors were hushed and still. Servants moved with care, carrying water, tending fires, and arranging fresh bundles of herbs. Their steps were soft and measured.
the faint scrape of tools, the gentle hum of voices, and the low crackle of the hearth blended into the muted rhythm of the day. Outside, the melting snow created tiny puddles that reflected sunlight in glimmering patterns. The world felt lighter, longer, and more expansive, yet calm and deliberate. Breakfast was simple, warm, and unhurried. Thick porridge, fresh bread, and a little cheese nourished slowly. The fire in the hearth flickered steadily, casting soft, moving shadows across the stone floor. The sunlight streamed gently through the windows, highlighting the small greening courtyard and the small streams running across it. Each bite and sip was deliberate, forming part of the quiet rhythm of early spring. After breakfast, the knight tended to indoor tasks slowly. Leather was brushed and conditioned, armor polished with steady strokes, weapons inspected and oiled. Each movement, each sound, the scrape of metal, the tap of brushes, the soft crackle of the hearth merged into a meditative cadence. Outside, the small streams trickled gently, their soft gurgle blending with the distant calls of returning birds. The rhythm of castle life moved in gentle harmony with the slow unfolding of the season. The horses sensed the warming air. Their breath rose in faint clouds. The knight brushed their coats slowly, checked hooves, and adjusted blankets. The animals moved softly over patches of soft, thawed ground. Their quiet nicker and the gentle swish of the brushes blended with the faint trickle of water and distant bird calls, creating a slow, steady cadence full of calm and reassurance. Midday passed in gentle warmth. The great hall glowed from the steady fire. The meal was simple and nourishing: thick stew, roasted vegetables, and warm bread. Conversation was soft, measured, and low. Outside, the melting snow revealed dark earth and soft grass, while the sun reflected off small streams and puddles. Every bite, every sip, every movement flowed into the slow, meditative rhythm of life, blending seamlessly with the gentle sounds of spring. Afternoon unfolded with deliberate, quiet routines. The knight attended to leatherwork, polished armor, and arranged garments carefully. Sunlight filtered through the windows, soft and warm, highlighting the pale green shoots and small buds appearing outside. Birds called gently from a distance, adding soft, irregular notes to the steady hum of the hearth. Each movement, each sound, each breath merged with the slow rhythm of the day. As evening approached, shadows stretched long and gentle across the stone floors. Candlelight flickered steadily along the walls. The fire glowed warmly, radiating steady, comforting heat. Outside, streams ran quietly across the courtyard. Birds settled softly into nearby trees, and the earth began to show more fully beneath patches of melting snow. Every motion, every sound, every breath became part of the gentle, unhurried rhythm of the long spring evening. Supper was calm, warm, and deliberate. The meal nourished the body slowly. Stew, bread, roasted vegetables. Conversation was soft and gentle, measured and quiet. The fire crackled slowly. Candlelight flickered steadily. Every sound, every motion, every breath blended into the continuous rhythm of the evening, deepening the calm. After supper, the knight returns to his chamber. The blankets were drawn snugly. A single candle flickered softly, casting gentle shadows across the walls. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, herbs, and the damp earth outside. The faint trickle of streams, the soft call of distant birds, and the gentle crackle of the hearth merged into a continuous, calming lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the flickering candlelight, and the soft sounds of early spring created a cocoon of gentle calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every movement became part of the steady, soothing rhythm surrounding him. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timber ceilings, quiet corridors, and the softly thawing courtyard absorbed the stillness of early spring. Every shadow, every faint sound, every subtle movement carried a soft, continuous, unhurried rhythm. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle settling into rest. The fire crackled softly, the candlelight flickered steadily, and the quiet, soft world outside merged into one continuous, calming lullaby. Time flowed gently, endlessly, quietly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of early spring, the flowing streams, and the soft, quiet world around him.
Spring fully settled over the land, gentle and soft. The snow had disappeared completely, leaving the courtyard and fields damp, dark, and soft with fertile earth. Tiny green shoots peeked from the ground, promising new growth. Trees had small, tender leaves, and the earliest flowers appeared quietly, tucked in shaded corners. The air was fragrant with wet soil, fresh grass, and faint scents of herbs from castle gardens. The sun lingered longer in the sky, its pale warmth spilling slowly across stone walls, gently illuminating every surface. The knight awoke slowly, wrapped in the warm blankets of his chamber. The morning air was cool, but softened by sunlight streaming through clear windows. Each movement, turning, stretching, rising, was deliberate, slow, and soothing. The hearth beside his bed radiated steady warmth, and the faint distant sounds of flowing water and soft bird song created a gentle rhythm that seemed to welcome him into the day. The corridors were hushed and steady. Servants moved softly, tending fires, carrying fresh water, and arranging bundles of herbs. Every step was measured. The scrape of a basket, the low hum of conversation, and the occasional tap of tools blended with the calm, muted rhythm of the castle. Outside, birds called softly from budding trees, and tiny streams shimmered under the morning sun. Each sound became part of the slow, comforting cadence of spring life. Breakfast was warm and unhurried. Thick porridge, fresh bread, and a little cheese nourished the body slowly. The hearth flickered steadily, casting gentle moving shadows across the stone floor. Sunlight reflected off the tiny streams and puddles in the courtyard, sparkling softly. Every bite and sip was taken deliberately, forming part of the continuous, calm rhythm of the morning. After breakfast, the knight tended to quiet indoor tasks. Leather was brushed carefully, armor polished with steady strokes, and weapons inspected and oiled. Each motion, the scrape of metal, the gentle tap of brushes, the low hum of the fire, blended seamlessly into the rhythm of spring mornings. Outside, birds called softly from anisili trees, streams gurgled gently, and the faint rustle of newly budding leaves added soft textures to the quiet day. The horses felt the gentle warmth of spring. Their breath rose in small clouds, now mingled with the soft warmth of sunlight. The knight brushed their coats, checked their hooves, and adjusted blankets slowly. The animals stepped carefully across patches of soft, moist earth.
Their quiet nicker, the swish of the brush, and the faint thud of hooves blended with the gurgling streams and distant birdsong, forming a steady, soothing cadence that mirrored the calm unfolding of the season. Midday passed slowly, warmly, and gently indoors. The great hall glowed with the fire's warmth. Meals remained simple but nourishing: thick stew, roasted vegetables, and warm bread. Conversation was soft, measured, and low. Outside, streams sparkled under the sun. Green shoots appeared in the gardens, and the faint rustle of leaves added a delicate background rhythm. Every bite, every sip, every small movement flowed naturally into the calm cadence of life. Afternoon unfolded quietly, with deliberate routines. The night attended to leatherwork, polished armor, and arranged garments carefully. Sunlight streamed gently through the windows, highlighting the budding gardens outside. Birds called softly from trees, insects hummed faintly in the warming air, and streams gurgled quietly. Each movement, each sound, each breath blended with the unhurried rhythm of spring afternoons. As evening approached, shadows stretched long and soft across the stone floors. Candlelight flickered steadily along walls. The fire glowed warmly, radiating a comforting, steady heat. Outside, gardens glimmered with new life. Streams flowed gently, and trees swayed softly in the calm evening breeze. Every movement, every sound, every breath became part of the steady, meditative rhythm of a long, quiet spring evening. Supper was calm, warm, and deliberate. The meal nourished slowly: stew, bread, and roasted vegetables. Conversation was soft and measured. The fire crackled quietly. Candlelight flickered gently. Every motion and every sound merged seamlessly into the long, unhurried evening rhythm, creating a deep sense of calm. After supper, the knight returned to his chamber. Blankets were drawn snugly. A single candle flickered softly, casting moving shadows across the walls. The air smelled faintly of wood, stone, herbs, and the damp, soft earth outside. Streams gurgled quietly. Birds settled for the night. Every sound, every shadow, every small movement merged into a continuous, calming lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of the blankets, the flickering candlelight, and the gentle sounds of early spring created a cocoon of calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every movement became part of the steady rhythm of rest surrounding him. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, quiet corridors, and the softly flowing streams outside absorbed the stillness of full spring. Every shadow, every faint sound, every subtle movement carried a soft, continuous, unhurried rhythm. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle, steady settling into rest. The fire crackled softly, the candlelight flickered steadily, and the quiet, growing world outside merged into one continuous, soft lullaby. Time flowed gently, endlessly, quietly, and the night rested, wrapped in rest.
Late spring settled softly over the land. The gardens bloomed quietly, petals unfolding in gentle colors, soft whites, pale pinks, tender yellows. Trees were fully leafed, their branches swaying lightly in a warm, gentle breeze. The sun lingered longer in the sky, casting a soft golden glow over the castle walls, the courtyard, and the distant hills.
Birds called in small melodic bursts, flitting from branch to branch. Streams ran steadily, reflecting the sunlight and the faint shadows of leaves above. The world felt alive, warm and gentle, yet calm and unhurried. The night awoke slowly, wrapped in the comforting warmth of his blankets. The morning light filtered softly through open windows. Each stretch, each turn, each slow movement was deliberate, soothing, and calm. The hearth beside his bed radiated gentle warmth. Outside, the soft rustle of leaves, the low murmur of streams, and the distant chirping of birds merged into a natural rhythm that welcomed him into the day. The corridors were quiet, filled with steady, gentle motion. Servants moved with soft steps, tending fires, carrying fresh water, and arranging herbs and flowers from the gardens. Every sound, the scrape of a tool, the hum of conversation, the faint tap of boots, blended seamlessly with the muted rhythms of the castle. Outside, the warm air carried the faint fragrance of flowering gardens and moist earth. Every motion, every sound, every breath contributed to the calm, gentle pace of life. Breakfast was warm, simple, and unhurried. Thick porridge, fresh bread, and a little cheese nourished slowly. Sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the bright petals in the gardens and the soft shimmer of streams in the courtyard. Each bite and sip was deliberate, part of the continuous soothing rhythm of the morning. The knight tended to tasks slowly, inside and out. Leatherwork was polished carefully, armor inspected and oiled, and weapons arranged neatly. Outside, the courtyard and gardens glimmered with new life. Birds sang softly from the branches, streams ran quietly, and petals swayed in the warm breeze. The knight moved through each task with measured, calm steps, every motion part of a gentle, steady cadence that seemed to slow the very air around him. Midday passed quietly. The great hall glowed with the warmth of the fire, though sunlight now played across the floors and walls, soft and golden. Meals remained simple but nourishing: thick stew, bread, roasted vegetables. Conversation was soft, measured, and calm. Outside, streams reflected sunlight, gardens thrived, and the distant hills shimmered in gentle light. Every bite, every sip, every motion flowed naturally into the peaceful rhythm of life. Afternoon stretched long and gentle. The knight moved slowly through the gardens and courtyards, tending to plants, inspecting the grounds, and caring for the horses. Birdsong filled the warm air. Streams gurgled quietly, reflecting sunlight and sparkling patterns. Flowers nodded softly in the breeze, and the faint fragrance of herbs and blossoms mingled with the cool scent of streams. Each movement, each sound, every breath merged into a calm, meditative rhythm, steady and unhurried. Evening approached softly. Shadows lengthened slowly across the stone floors and the gardens beyond. Candlelight flickered gently along the walls. The fire glowed warmly, radiating steady comfort. Outside, petals swayed, streams flowed gently, and birds settled quietly into the trees. Every motion, every sound, every breath became part of the serene, unhurried rhythm of the long, calm evening. Supper was calm and deliberate. Meals nourished slowly: bread, roasted vegetables, and light stew. Conversation was low, measured, and gentle. The fire crackled quietly, candlelight flickered steadily, and every sound and motion blended seamlessly into the rhythm of the evening. After supper, the knight returned to his chamber. The blankets were drawn snugly around him. A single candle flickered softly, casting moving shadows across the walls. The air carried the warm fragrance of wood, stone, and flowering herbs from the gardens outside. Streams gurgled quietly, and birds settled into gentle silence. Every sound, every shadow, every subtle movement merged into one continuous calming lullaby. He lay down slowly. The warmth of blankets, the soft candlelight, and the quiet, blooming world outside created a cocoon of calm. His breathing deepened, slowed, and evened. Every heartbeat, every sound, every movement became part of the steady rhythm of rest surrounding him. The castle rested with him. Stone walls, timbered ceilings, quiet corridors, flowing streams, and blooming gardens absorbed the stillness of late spring. Every shadow, every faint sound, every subtle movement carried a soft, continuous, unhurried rhythm. The night drifted into sleep. No abrupt shift, no sudden change, only a gentle, steady settling into rest. The fire crackled softly, the candlelight flickered steadily, and the quiet, flourishing world outside merged into one continuous, soft lullaby. Time flowed gently, endlessly, quietly, and the night rested, wrapped in the serene rhythm of spring, the warm sunlight, the soft blooming gardens, and the quiet world around him. Everything was calm. Everything was still. And slowly, peacefully, the day faded into night. The end.